Since childhood, I have always ranked first but at just 18 years old, I was diagnosed with I only had 3 months to live. However, I hadn't even held a girl's hand yet. I was deeply unwilling, so I decided to unleash my rebellious and wild side, to be my true self for once. As I walked into the classroom, wearing a flamboyant floral shirt, I attracted the attention of the entire class. This gave me an unprecedented thrill. Only then did I realize that I had always been living under others. However, I ignored them. I plopped down in my seat. Then I noticed Liu Ruyan, who sat staring at me with questioning eyes. Zhuangziang, why didn't you reply to my— Liu Ruyan, the goddess of the school, was never short of admirers. Or to put it bluntly, she had many simp. I was one of them too. After all, we sat next to each other every day. For a teenage boy, it was hard not to develop feelings for such a beauty. I pulled out my phone and saw several unread messages from Liu Ruyan. Zhuangziang, I want to eat Li Ji's pan-fried buns tomorrow morning. Remember to buy them. Why didn't you come to school today? And why aren't you replying? If you keep disappearing like this, I won't give you a chance to chase me anymore. I'm about to die. Why would I care about your chances? You're not even mine. Why do I have to buy food for you just because you want it? What did you just say? Liu Ruyan widened her eyes in disbelief. She thought she had misheard me. How dare I speak to her in that tone? How could a simp be so bold? I admitted that I used to like Liu Ruyan, but she always kept me at arm's length, hot and cold. I felt like I was about to give up. She would always give me just enough hope, just stringing me along, playing games. Now that I knew I had a terminal illness, I finally had a great awakening. I wanted to put an immediate stop to this pointless— My dear classmate, I was never obligated to buy breakfast for you. Doing so was a favor. Not doing so was my— It seems like you haven't figured out your place. I answered indifferently. Zhuangziang, are you seriously sick in the head? If you keep this up, you'll lose me forever. Liu Ruyan's words carried a hint of— Whatever. You talk as if I ever had you in the first place. Liu Ruyan was utterly disappointed. She turned away angrily. Hey, what the hell are you wearing? Aren't you afraid old Zhang will skin— Yi Tengcheng, my desk mate, and my best friend. We always called each other father and son. I'm sick. I just wanted to change things. I smiled as I explained to him. Not bad, you've got taste. Just add a big gold chain around your neck. Then you'd really have style. Yi Tengcheng laughed and teased. Just then, the bell for class rang. Next up was 2 consecutive periods of math. Wu Qufang, also known as the extinction teacher, walked up. Math class had an excellent hypnotic effect. Just 2.5 minutes in, more than half the class was already dozing off. Meanwhile, I reached into Yi Tengcheng's and pulled out a copy of Demigods and I flipped to a random page and landed on a class. The 18 dragon-subduing palms, raging like a tiger, soaring. Son, do you have a death wish? Reading a novel in extinction teacher's class? Yi Tengcheng whispered in disbelief. He couldn't believe his own eyes. I had always been serious and disciplined in class, completely focused. But after missing just one day, had I taken the wrong med? But right now I didn't care anymore. I was going to do everything I had always wanted to. I would experience everything. Burn my youth. Murongongzi, Zhuang clan leader, Elder Ding. Even if the 3 of you join force, Xiao has nothing to— I was right at the most exciting. Suddenly, I felt a murderous aura approach. I looked up and met Wu Qufang's sharp gaze. Zhuangziang, come to the board and solve. I walked up to the podium with my head held. Then, with smooth and effortless strokes, I wrote down. After finishing, I casually tossed the chalk away. If you don't understand, just ask me. I was incredibly arrogant. Wu Qufang looked at the perfectly correct solution. Her face turned dark. Zhuangziang, your math scores have always been the best. Please share your study methods with us. Surely it's not by reading novels in class? Miss Wu, honestly, I don't like math at all. I replied casually. What did you say? Wu Qufang was shocked. I said I have no interest in math at all. It does nothing but torture my brain cells. It has no practical use. The only reason I score well is because my classmates make me look good. These words not only challenged the teacher, but also offended the entire class. Too arrogant. Wu Qufang was furious and slammed her hand on the podium. I'm confiscating your novel. Stand outside the class. Damn it! That's my book. Yi Tengcheng was anxious. Don't worry. I'll sneak into her office and steal it back. Then, with an air of complete defiance, I tossed demigods and semi-dub and coolly walked out of the classroom. The air outside was much fresher than inside. Wu Qufang stared at my rebellious behavior. After all, I was the top. How could I suddenly act like a completely different person? The classmates whispered, What happened to Zhuangziang? He's acting. You have to admit, He did look pretty cool. I stood in the hallway outside. Standing here as punishment is might as well skip class. I've never skipped class in my entire life. I made my way to the northwest corner. There was a section of the wall that was slightly. I had seen students climb over it before. Back then, I was the head of the student discipline, wearing the red armband of authority. And now, here I was, breaking the very rules I once enforced. It felt ironic, but I didn't care anymore. This world is absurd anyway. I reached the wall. Only then did I realize that I had underestimated its height. Jumping over it was about as difficult as dunking. Forget it. I wouldn't even know what to do outside. I decided to give up. Just as I was about to turn around, I heard a melody playing nearby. Sol, sila so. Are you trying to sneak? A clear, crisp voice rang out from a short distance away. I was caught off guard and jumped in surprise. I turned my head. Under a ginkgo tree, a girl was leaning casually. She was beautiful. She wore a pure white blouse, paired with a deep blue pleated skirt. I had always thought Liu Ruyan was stunning, but compared to the girl in front of me, Liu Ruyan suddenly seemed ordinary. You're skipping class? I asked. Shh, she whispered, raising a finger to her lips. Her fingers were delicate and elegant, as if sculpted from white jade. Her lips were small and rosy, like freshly picked strawberries. Hi, I'm Zhuangziang. From class 9, I introduced myself in a low voice. Su Yudie, class 23, the girl replied. But wait, our entire school only had one grade level, and there were only 22 classes in total. If she said class 23, she was probably being cautious. She didn't want to reveal her real class. Perhaps she even knew that I was the former head of the discipline. Su Yudie looked up at the high wall. If you really want to get out, I can help you? I was pleasantly surprised. Really? What's your plan? Kneel down. I'll climb onto your shoulders and get over the wall. Then I'll pull you up. Su Yudie smiled as she spoke. But you're so small and thin. Can you really pull me? I was a little doubtful. Don't worry. I'm stronger than I look. Su Yudie raised her arm, showing off her biceps. All right, let's work together. I immediately crouched down. To avoid dirtying her clothes, Su Yudie took off her canvas shoes. Her white socks were exposed. Then she hung both of her shoes around my shoulder. These are my keepsake. Now you don't have to worry. I won't abandon you once I chuckled. No need. I trust you. Just as I finished speaking, I felt her step onto her feet were soft. She was incredibly light. I slowly stood up. At that moment, a mischievous thought popped into my head. The girl standing on my shoulders was wearing a skirt. If I looked up, no, stop. Just a fleeting thought. I wasn't that kind of pervert. Lust is the root of all. Judge actions, not thought. If thoughts were judged, Su Yudie was as light as a swallow as she climbed onto the wall. Then she stretched out her slender hand. Give me your hand. I reached up and grabbed her hand. I never imagined that the first time I held a girl's hand would be while climbing over. Her hand was soft, and as she said, she was strong. With her help, I easily made it over the wall. I looked back at the familiar school. There was a sense of guilt, but also an exhilarating thrill. Help me put my shoes back on. Su Yudie extended her delicate feet toward me. The top of the wall it was difficult for her to balance while putting on her shoes. I had never helped a girl put on shoes before. My heart was pounding. My breathing grew heavy. Holding her soft and delicate ankle, I struggled a bit before finally slipping her canvas shoe on. Then I tied a slightly messy bow. Shoes on. Su Yudie looked down at the ground. Wow, it's so high! I'm a little scared. You go first and catch me. I took out my phone and placed it in her palm. This is my keepsake. Now you don't have to worry. I won't leave you behind. No need, I trust you. Su Yudie smiled sweetly. I took a deep breath. Then I jumped, landing firmly on the ground. I stretched out my arms, signaling her to jump. Su Yudie hesitated for a while. Finally, she took a deep breath and let herself fall sideways. I caught her in a princess kick, holding her steady. It was like a scene, straight out of a romance. But the moment I turned my head, I saw a familiar figure. A middle-aged man in his 40s, wearing a brown leather jacket, holding a silver thermos cup in his hand. It was none other than my homeroom teacher, Zhang Zhiyuan. Zhuangziang, what are you doing? Zhang Zhiyuan had witnessed my entire escape. He had waited for me to land before revealing himself. Probably if he hadn't seen it with his own eye, he wouldn't have believed it. The best student in the class, climbing a wall to skip school. Who's that? Su Yudie asked, looking adorably. Run! I grabbed Su Yudie's hand, then took off running. Stop right there, you brat. Come back here. Zhang Zhiyuan chased after us after all, age has caught up. Physical strength regretfully gave up. He gasped for breath. Leaning against a utility pole, he set aside, took a sip of goji berry tea. Mr. Zhang, I'll write a self-reflection for you tomorrow. Just let me indulge this once today. I waved vigorously at Zhang Zhiyuan. then disappeared into the crowd. How long are you going to hold my hand? Su Yudie blinked her big, watery eyes. Sorry. I quickly let go, holding hands with such a beautiful girl. It actually felt pretty nice. Too bad she noticed before I had enough. Old Jang, thanks for the assist. We walked side by side through the bustling street. I asked Su Yudie, why did you skip class? Su Yudie looked innocent. I didn't plan to skip class. I was just going to pick ginkgo. It was you who wanted to skip, so I came along. Nonsense, it's class time. Why aren't you in the classroom? We have PE class. Su Yudie explained with a smile. I was left speechless. Not only did I skip class, I also led a student from another class, a double offense. Then why did you skip class? Su Yudie asked. I ran into something upsetting. Just wanted to let loose for a... I tried to sound casual. If you're upset, then let me take you to eat something delicious. It'll make you feel better. The delicious food Su Yudie mentioned was fried potato. The vendor was a middle-aged aunt. She greeted her with a warm smile. Little butterfly, it's been a long time since you last came. Su Yudie responded with a sweet smile. Auntie, I want 2 servings of potato. Extra chili, please. This is my friend. His name is Zhuangziang. I frowned. What? She doesn't even remember my name and calls me a friend? It's Zhuangziang. Wait for me here for a moment. I'm going to buy some Coke. Coca-Cola is better than Pepsi. As everyone knows, Coca-Cola is more fizzy. Pepsi is sweeter. 2.5 minutes, we sat on Dolly City Street. Eating fried potatoes? Tell me your sad story. Let me have a laugh. Su Yudie suddenly blinked her big, watery eyes. Are you trying to rub salt in my wound? I snapped, of course not. When you talk about something sad, maybe it doesn't feel as sad anymore. I turned my head to look at her elegant profile. She looked innocent and harmless. It was easy to trust her. I hesitated for a moment, then slowly began. When I was 12, I graduated from primary. One summer night, my dad said the whole family would go on a beach trip. I had never seen the ocean before. I was so excited I couldn't sleep all. I even packed my bags in advance. Wow, your dad is so nice. I've never seen the ocean either, Su Yudie said longingly. But when I woke up the next morning, I found out the 3 of them had already... Turns out when my dad said the whole family, he didn't... My gaze darkened at that moment. Su Yudie fell silent. The atmosphere became a little awkward. She wanted to comfort me, but didn't know what to say. Suddenly, she picked up a piece of potato held it up to my mouth. Do you want to try mine? Aren't they the same? I was confused. No, this one is special. I'm feeding it. I took a bite, and somehow it tasted different. A faint sweetness spread in my heart. When I was 14, I had a severe stomachache. The pain was unbearable. I writhed in agony in bed. My dad woke up and whipped me with his belt, told me to be quiet because my younger brother has a piano exam. I couldn't disturb his sleep. I recalled the past, and my eyes unknowingly turned red. That was the darkest night of my life. This event was like a thorn in my heart. I had never told anyone about it, but the girl in front of me gave me an inexplicable sense of trust. Zhuangziang, you're having a nosebleed. Sorry, it must be because the potatoes are too spicy. Su Yudie hurriedly pulled out a tissue to help me wipe it. I felt a faint warmth seeping into my skin from her fingertip. The frustration in my heart also gradually dissipated. After stopping the bleeding, I gratefully said thank you. I've been getting nosebleeds often in the past. It's not because of the potatoes. Su Yudie pulled out a handful of cash from her pocket. She counted it, a total of 53 yuan. She softly said, I'll keep 4 yuan for the bus fare. The remaining 49 yuan can all be used to treat you to food. Whenever I feel sad, I just eat a lot of delicious food. It makes me feel less sad. I smiled. In this world, only love and food should not be wasted. But I'm a guy. I should be the one treating you. Not today. Today I treat. Next time, when I'm feeling down, you can treat me. Su Yudie stubbornly pouted. All right then. I'm thick-skinned, so I won't be polite with you. I readily agreed. After eating the potatoes and drinking the cola, we continued our food conquest journey. We ate our way through, from lamb skewers to hand-grabbed, from oden to spicy hot pot. After Su Yudie spent all her 49 yuan, I paid to buy her a cup of strawberry milk tea. I was already too full, so I didn't get a drink. Wow, Zhuangziang, this is so delicious. Do you want to try some? Su Yudie exaggeratedly praised while holding the cup up to me. How can I try it? I noticed the straw was full of teeth marks. Even if it wasn't bitten like that, 2 people shouldn't share the same straw. After all, we've only known each other for an hour. Men and women should maintain. Su Yudie took out a straw from behind her. I asked for an extra one when we bought the cola earlier. Here, take a sip. I hesitated for a moment, staring into her clear eyes. In the end, I couldn't resist. I lowered my head and took a The rich aroma of the milk tea spread across my tongue, leaving a lingering taste. It was just an ordinary strawberry milk tea, but somehow it tasted much better than usual. Drinking from the same cup with two straws is usually something only couples do. Was she doing this on purpose, or was she just innocent? I knew I wasn't bad looking, but not to the point where a beautiful girl would fall for me at first, so she must just be naturally naive. Zhuangziang, we're friends now, right? Of course. You even told the potato vendor earlier that we're friends. Zhuangziang, are you skipping school this afternoon too? Su Yudie asked with a big smile. I'm not going. I answered decisively. Shopping with a girl was way more interesting than sitting in class. For the first time in my life, I was acting like a rebellious kid. It felt thrilling. So, where should we go this afternoon? Su Yudie suddenly moved a little closer to me. The faint fragrance of a young girl filled my nose. I thought for a moment, then asked, do you like reading? Su Yudie furrowed her brows and shook her head. No, especially not math books. I don't mean textbooks. I mean books for fun. I quickly explained, oh, those? I do like them. I love comic books and joke books. A beautiful smile appeared on her lips. Great, let's go to the library this afternoon. Can we bring food into the library? Of course not. I raised my voice. This girl was truly a little foodie. No wonder you have so much energy. Su Yudie looked at a convenience on the street. Are candies not allowed? I can secretly eat candy. That should be fine, right? All right, hurry, go buy some. Su Yudie was as happy as a child, pulling me into the store. She bought a pack of fruit-flavored. When we arrived at the library, I picked up Demigods and Semi-Devils from the bookshelf, planning to continue the story from the morning. Even though the TV series had been remade countless times, the unique charm of written word was something that visuals could never. When I reached the reading area, Su Yudie was already sitting at the table, holding a children's joke book with a smile on her face. Wow, what a profound book you're reading. I teased her on purpose. Su Yudie, of course, could tell I was being sarcastic. She didn't mind. As long as life is happy, why does it need to be so deep and meaningful? The more knowledge you have, the less happy you might be. I completely agreed. Exactly. Whether you're a scientist, a thinker, or a philosopher, in the end, everyone dies. I was stunned for a moment, then muttered to myself, yeah, I'm going to die too. The afternoon sunlight slanted through the windows. Just like that, we spent the whole afternoon in the library. Leaving the library, I watched as Su Yudie got on the bus. Eventually, she disappeared into the... Damn, I forgot to ask for her phone number. The next day at school, I walked all the way up to the... I confirmed with my own eyes that class 22 was... Little butterfly, who exactly are you? Where did you come from? Back in the classroom, Liu Ruyan, who sat in the front row, turned around. Zhuangziang, I didn't know you were sick. Why do I need your forgiveness when I did nothing wrong? Why should I need your... As my best bro, Yi Tengcheng had always held resentment towards Liu Ruyan. Last time, he even said there was a... Let's make things clear today. If you like Zhuangziang, then be with him. If you don't like him, then don't string him along. What does that have to do? Liu Ruyan rolled her eyes at Yi Tengcheng. I just don't want to be in a relationship for now. I never said I don't like him. As long as he's sincere and keeps trying, I might consider him in the future. Yi Tengcheng was furious. Do you even hear yourself right now? Are you just keeping him as a backup? You guys are so funny. Just because a guy chases me a little, do I have to agree immediately? Wouldn't that make me seem too easy? Liu Ruyan argued confidently. Yi Tengcheng was getting more and more frustrated. What if Zhuangziang keeps chasing you, but you meet another guy you like more? Then, of course, I'll choose my true love. Loving someone means not caring about consequences. If he really likes me, then he should wish me happiness. Hearing this twisted logic, Yi Tengcheng was completely speechless. What's wrong with this world? What has made these so blindly confident? Liu Ruyan, I've thought it through. I don't really like you that much. I won't bother you anymore. And please stop bothering. In the last 3 months of my life, I refused to be a pathetic simp. Saying these words, I felt a huge sense of relief. Liu Ruyan was furious. I'm announcing it now. Zhuangziang, you have completely lost your chance. Liu Ruyan delivered her final judgment. Who even wants you? Well said. I've been wanting to tell you that for a... You're good-looking and smart. You'll definitely find a girl 100 times prettier. Yi Tengcheng retorted sharply. Are you out of your mind? Ruyan is the school beauty. Where would you find a girl prettier than her? Zhuangziang, I order you to apologize to Ruyan immediately. A voice of accusation came from the corner. The one speaking was Jiboda. He was the vice class. Usually, he He was overshadowed by me, and he had always been resentful about it. And who do you think you are? You think you have the right to order? You're nothing but Liu Ruyan's lapdog, and forever stuck as second. I sneered. Normally, I wouldn't use harsh words, but right now, I had for people who ask for it, there's no need to be polite. Just then, a classmate suddenly called out to me. There's a girl outside looking. I turned toward the window, and my breath caught. Outside the window, a girl stood in a pure white paired with a deep blue pleated skirt. She turned and smiled, more beautiful than a blooming flower. I suddenly stood up and rushed out. The classroom instantly erupted into chaos. Who is that girl? She's stunning. In our school, is there actually a girl prettier than Liu Ruyan? No wonder Zhuang stopped chasing Liu Ruyan. Talk about unfair comparisons. Some people just get all. At this moment, Liu Ruyan's expression turned incredibly. I took 2 steps at a time and ran to the hall. Why are you here? Su Yudie pulled out a small tube of medicine. This is for you. The doctor said it can help with nose. I reached out and took it. It was just an ordinary hemostatic Of course, I knew this wouldn't cure my condition, but I still smiled faintly. Thank you. You even got here before class. Do you want to sit over there with me for a while? Su Yudie pointed to a flower bed nearby. Of course, I nodded eagerly. Su Yudie smoothed out her skirt. Then she gracefully knelt down. Was the strawberry cake yesterday good? My heart tightened upon hearing. Last night, Su Yudie asked me to bring a piece of cake back for my brother. She was trying to ease the tension between us, but I didn't dare to say that the delicate and beautiful cake was stomped into a mess. Such a simple and innocent girl. Must believe the world is full of goodness. So I decided to make up a lie. Thank you for the idea. My brother really liked the cake. He got cream all over his mouth. He even called me brother. Dad was happy too. He asked about my studies. When he found out I was first, he gave me a big hug. Auntie made a big table full of delicious. She kept putting food on my plate, praising me for being smart, and Su Yudie hugged her knees, slightly raising her head. She quietly listened to my story. The scene I described had appeared in my dreams countless times. I thought I could tell it flawlessly, but the forced smile on my lips was stiff and unnatural. I've always been a good child. Of course, I'm not good at lying. Zhuangziang, you're a big fool. You're lying to me. Friends should be honest with each. Su Yudie suddenly spoke. Sorry, I apologized in a low voice. The truth is often cruel. I don't want to pass my sadness onto my friend. Zhuangziang, are you still? Su Yudie asked softly. Then after school at noon, I'll take you to eat something nice. Wait for me here, okay? All right, class is about to start. Su Yudie stood up and waved at me. In the blink of an eye, her figure disappeared into the crowd. Back in the classroom, Yi Tengcheng immediately leaned. Son, who was that girl? You didn't believe it at the time. Now I do. No wonder you're not chasing Liu Ruyan anymore. Yi Tengcheng deliberately raised his voice. Compared to that girl, Liu Ruyan is just too ordinary. Liu Ruyan had been secretly eavesdropping. At this moment, she turned her and shot a murderous glare. Then she gave me a deep, complicated look. Her emotions were extremely me not chasing her anymore was just losing a back. But now that a prettier girl had appeared, it was a completely different story. It was as if she had been over. For someone used to being on top, this was something she couldn't tolerate. Finally, the bell rang for lunch. The sound of the lunch bell echoed. Yi Tengcheng patted me on the Son, are we eating at the cafeteria again today? I have plans. Find someone else. I looked out toward the flower bed outside. What plans? We always have lunch together. Yi Tengcheng looked. I'll explain later, I said quickly. Go ahead without me. I hastily packed my book, slung my bag over my shoulder, and Yi Tengcheng's eyes widened. He felt abandoned until he saw the girl waiting for me. Then he was so furious he almost exploded. Betraying your bros for a girl? Are you even human? You beast. As soon as I saw Su Yudie, my tense expression saw. I cautiously asked, what floor is your? You came down really fast. The 5th floor. I ran down because Su Yudie was slightly out of. A sparkle flashed in my eyes. Am I really worth someone running just to see me? What do you want to eat? My treat, I said with. Let's have hot pot. There are so many dishes in it. At the mention of food, she looked as if she was about to start drooling. She looked like she was about to drool. Hot pot for lunch? Aren't you afraid the smell will? Just eat whatever you want. Why worry so much about it? This girl was truly carefree. Being around her, I found myself becoming much more cheerful. Su Yudie ordered a spicy hot pot. Then she smiled at me and said, tastier than Pepsi. I raised my head and replied. She lifted her cup and clinked it against mine. Zhuangziang, I wish for you to forget and be happy every day. I was touched. Little butterfly. Thank you. The carbonated soda stung slightly. Looking at her angelic face, I couldn't help but ask, "Little butterfly, why are you always so happy? Happiness lasts a day. Unhappiness lasts a day too. So why not choose to be happy?" Su Yudie smiled. I nodded silently. That made sense. I had no argument against it. After lunch, I planned to walk around. I wanted to see if there were any apartments for the last 3 months, I wanted to live on my own. Surprisingly, when Su Yudie heard about it, she insisted there were plenty of rental listings posted. I found a one-bedroom apartment, so I called the landlord. Not long after, an elderly woman, around 60 years, "You two planning to live together?" Grandma Liu asked. "No, it's just me." I quickly explained, feeling a bit embarrassed. "It's fine, dear, I'm quite open-minded. You young people dating and all? That's perfectly normal." Grandma Liu chuckled as she spoke. Su Yudie blushed instantly upon hearing that. Despite how chatty she usually was, always full of words, at this moment, she was completely speechless. I looked around the apartment. It was clean. The lighting was pretty good. I decided on the spot to rent. Following the usual rental rules, I paid a deposit, a total of 1,200 yuan. I smiled at Su Yudie. "Little butterfly, 3 months later, help me return the apartment. You can keep the leftover deposit and use it to eat hot." Su Yudie blinked her bright, watery eyes. "Why won't you return it yourself?" "Maybe I won't be able to." My gaze darkened. By then, I'd probably be in the hospital. After leaving the rental apartment, we went to a nearby supermarket together. We bought some daily necessities. I specifically picked up a tear-off, the kind where you tear off 1 page per day. 90 days barely made a thin stab. When I came out, I noticed Su Yudie holding a glass fish tank. Inside, 2 red goldfish swam happily. "Zhuangziang, this is my gift to you. Congratulations on your new home." "Why give me 2 fish? I can barely take care of myself. I can manage it. It's to add a little life to your new home. Promise me don't die." Su Yudie said seriously. "Don't die?" I was taken aback. "I mean, these 2 fish, if you let them die, I won't forgive you." Su Yudie waved her fist in mock. I gazed deeply into her eyes. Having a friend like her was truly a wonderful thing. But why? Why did I have to meet you at the end of my life? Little butterfly, if only I had met you earlier. Loving until the heart shatters, but don't blame anyone. It's only because our encounter was too beautiful. Even if all my tears run dry and my heart under the shining stars, fear no pain. Little butterfly, give me your phone number. Next time I can call you to meet. On the way back to school, I spent a long time organizing my words. Finally, I gathered. She pulled a card out of her pocket. Her phone was just a thin, simple. It could only make calls and send messages. It was nothing like a smartphone with all its features. We happily exchanged contact information. Su Yudie said, "It's best if you contact me during the day. I'm usually not available at night. My grandma doesn't let me use my phone." "Well, there isn't much to do on this phone anyway." I laughed. "Zhuangziang, you big fool. Don't laugh at me." Su Yudie pretended to be angry. She ran up and poked at my shirt. Classroom 9 was on the 2nd floor. We parted ways at the stairwell landing. "See you, little butterfly. I'll text you." "Okay, but I might not check my phone if I'm busy. But I'll reply when I see it." I watched her go upstairs before heading to my classroom. Halfway there, something suddenly occurred. I quickly turned back and ran up the stairs, trying to catch up to her. Which class was Little Butterfly in? I searched the 3rd and 4th floors, even the 5th floor, but I couldn't find her anywhere. Did she really leave that? I patted the stair railing, frustrated, and walked down slowly. We were friends now, yet she still wouldn't tell me which class she was in. The last class of the day ended right on time at 6. Our homeroom teacher, Zhang Zhiyuan, he waved at me. "Zhuangziang, come with me." I quickly packed my bag and followed him. Only after we had walked did I carefully ask, "Mr. Zhang, where are we going?" "To the hospital. I need to talk to him personally." The fact that I was terminally was something I had only told Zhang Zhiyuan. I had asked him to keep it a secret. After all, he was the teacher I respected the most. I didn't want to hide anything from him, but Zhang Zhiyuan, he still wouldn't give up on trying to save me. Even if it was hopeless, he needed to hear it from the doctor himself. We arrived at the central hospital. I took Zhang Zhiyuan to Dr. Chen Dexiu's office. Chen Dexiu adjusted his glass. He shook hands with Zhang Zhiyuan. "Hello, are you Zhuangziang's father?" Zhang Zhiyuan quickly clarified, "No, I'm his homeroom teacher. This illness is so severe. Why haven't his parents come to see him?" Chen Dexiu frowned in confusion. "They're both out of town. They asked me to come and check on his condition first." Zhang Zhiyuan found a random excuse. The two of them then discussed my illness. Chen Dexu was meticulous, his medical expertise using a series of complex medical terms. He summed it up in just 8 words. Terminal illness. Beyond saving. The last glimmer of hope in Zhang Jiwan's eyes quietly faded away. He's only 18. How could this happen? There was another girl before. She was even younger than him and had... Forget it. I won't bring it up. When you inform his parents, try to be as gentle as... Chen Dexu sighed and glanced at Zhang Ji. As we left the hospital, Zhang Jiwan remained... Now do you believe me? I asked casually. Zhuang Xiang, what do you want to eat tonight? Dinner's on me, Zhang Jiwan said. Did you forget what I said? I don't want anyone's pity or sympathy. No, that's not what I meant. Zhang Jiyuan hurriedly just drop me off at the school gate, then go home early and spend time with your wife, I said lightheartedly. Even though I was tempted to get a free meal, I had eaten too much hot pot at lunch. It was better to have something light for... I didn't want to overwork my stomach. Back at my rental apartment, I followed the doctor. I took a handful of colorful pills. I started to wonder, what was the point of taking these? With them, I could live 3. Without them, only 90 days. Nightfall came. I held my phone, staring at the contact named Little Butterfly. I started typing a message, wrote it, erased it, rewrote it. In the end, I simply typed, what do you want to eat tomorrow morning? I'll bring it for you. But I waited and waited. Still, no reply from Su Yudie. What could she be busy with so late? I stared at the screen. Unable to resist, I called her. Sorry, the number you dialed is out of service. Please try again later. How is that even possible? Are there still places with no sick? What is she, a caveman living in the mountains? The next morning, I woke up suddenly from my... But as soon as I checked my phone and saw Su Yudie's message, all my drowsiness disappeared. I made some Qingtuan green rice balls. Do you want some? I quickly typed back, yes. Then I'll buy some milk or make soy milk. Soy milk! Meet me at the bus stop. This time, she replied instantly. I immediately jumped out of bed. I picked a light blue jacket, paired it with black casual pants, then tossed away the floral shirt from yesterday. Now I actually looked like the good student I was. I arrived at the bus stop. After waiting for almost 10 minutes, bus 19 finally arrived, running late as usual. The doors opened. Su Yudie stepped off. When I saw her, I was puzzled. It had been 3 days, yet she was still... A white outfit like that should have gotten dirty but her shirt and shoes remained spotless. Little Butterfly, I called out. Zhuang Xiang. Sorry, did you wait long? Su Yudie blinked her bright, watery eyes. No, I just got here too. See, the soy milk is still warm. I'll have one. Su Yudie immediately took out a green rice ball from her backpack. I picked it up and took a bite. It's red bean paste, sweet but not green. Wow, it's both beautiful and delicious. Did you really make this yourself? Su Yudie nodded. Of course, mugwort helps clear heat and dampness. Eat more, and you won't get nosebleeds anymore. What? You made this especially for me? I was a bit surprised. Of course, it was such a hassle to make. I woke up super early today. Su Yudie covered her mouth and yawned as she spoke. I felt warmth in my heart. I never thought someone would be so considerate towards me. What a pity. These green rice balls can't cure my nosebleeds. Little Butterfly, there's nothing wrong. You don't need to do so much for me anymore. Su Yudie stubbornly shook her head. No way, we're friends. Friends should take care of each other. I silently took another bite. My heart was filled with mixed... God, are you messing with me? Why, when I'm about to die, would you send someone like her into my life? Oh right, Zhang Zhang. Sorry, I can't use my phone at night. I only saw your message this morning. Su Yudie suddenly remembered the message. She quickly apologized. It's okay. I knew you'd reply as soon as you saw it. Class is starting. Thanks for the soy milk. Goodbye. Su Yudie lightly stepped up the stairs. In just a few steps, she disappeared around. When I entered the classroom, Liu Ruyan was eating pan-fried buns. Ji Boda was eagerly attending to her. He even inserted a straw into her hot milk. As expected, a school beauty never lacks admirers. She never has to buy her own pan-fried buns. When Liu Ruyan saw me, her expression turned a little... She spoke up. I said I didn't want it, but Ji Boda insisted on buying. I gave a faint smile. Why are you telling me this? Then I casually plopped down on my seat. I pulled out a magazine from Yi Tengcheng's desk to read. Liu Ruyan stood frozen in place, looking somewhat... Pastor, have some milk. It's still warm. Ji Boda continued his devoted efforts to flatter the school beauty. Ji Boda, stop buying me breakfast from now on. I don't want Zhuang Xiang to misunderstand. Hearing this, Jibota felt as if he had fallen into an snowflakes drifted. The north wind howled. The world was vast and desolate. At noon after school, I went to the cafeteria with Yi Tengcheng for lunch. I hesitated several times, debating whether to message Su Yudie and invite her to lunch. But then I thought, since we had just met this morning, constantly bothering her might make me so I gave up. What's up with you? You seem distraught. Yi Tengcheng asked suspiciously. No, I'm just seriously eating my food. Even though I was eating, my eyes kept scanning the crowd as if searching for, like I was looking for someone. Yi Tengcheng smirked. Come on, tell me. How did you meet that girl? So, I started telling him the story from the beginning of how I met Su Yudie I told the story in full detail up until I saw her off on the number 19 bus. You ran into old Zhang. Then the two of you ran hand in hand for half a— Yi Tengcheng's eyes widened and yeah, we ran into the homeroom teacher by— Could I be any unluckier? I gave a bitter smile. But that's not the point. The point is, you held hands with— Do you even know that holding hands can make someone— Yi Tengcheng exclaimed exaggeratedly. Are you messing with a dad at 13 years old? I rolled my eyes and shoved a piece of braised— Yi Tengcheng, this idiot, shamelessly kept pestering me. Tell me, what does it feel like to hold a girl's hand? Is it soft? Is it smooth? Did your heart start racing? I couldn't even be bothered to— I buried my head and— Excuse me, may I sit here? A light, familiar voice suddenly rang out. I abruptly looked up and met Su Yudie's gaze. Yi Tengcheng quickly responded. Please have a seat. Hello, my name is Su Yudie. I'm a friend of Zhuangziang. Su Yudie introduced herself to Yi Tengcheng. I'm Yi Tengcheng. I'm Zhuangziang's dad. And also his best friend. Tengcheng had never talked to such a pretty girl before. He was a bit tongue-tied. I silently mocked him. Some guys just can't handle— He couldn't even talk properly. I'll buy drinks. What do you guys want? Su Yudie glanced at the nearby vending machine. That's nice. I'll take a Coca-Cola. Yi Tengcheng. I bought the drinks and came— Su Yudie turned to Yi Tengcheng. Is Zhuangziang always this boring? Yi Tengcheng nodded without hesitation. He's just an emotionless problem solver. He can't do anything else well. Especially gaming. He's dragged me down so many times. Gaming? A look of curiosity flickered in Su Yudie's eyes. Yeah, Honor of Kings. Don't you play? Yi Tengcheng asked. His phone probably only has Snake and Tetris on it. I burst out laughing. Idiot Zhuangziang! Don't make fun of my phone. Su Yudie pooted. She looked adorably upset. Little butterfly, I was wrong. Seeing her about to get physical, I quickly surrendered. Little butterfly? Yi Tengcheng was dumbfounded. You guys have only known each other and you're already using pet name. Butterfly is me. I am Butterfly. Su Yudie pointed at herself. At that moment, Yi Tengcheng suddenly felt like a third wheel, not even playing Honor of King. These two really are a perfect match. Wait, that line sounds really familiar. Are you sure you don't play? After lunch, the three of us left the cafeteria. It wasn't even 12:30. I planned to go back to my rental apartment for it. So I turned to Su Yudie and asked, I'm heading back to— Want to come? Su Yudie blushed shyly. How can you ask that so directly? Yi Tengcheng also looked awkward. I'm leaving. I rent a one-bedroom apartment. There's a couch in the living room. If Little Butterfly wants to come over, I can sleep on the couch and give her the bed. But of course, this clueless idiot Yi Tengcheng insisted on tagging along to check out my— In the end, Su Yudie just smiled and said good. Saying she was going back to the class, I shot Yi Tengcheng a murderous glare. You little pest, your life just got a bit short. Then, the two of us arrived at my rental. The place was only 30 square meters. Yi Tengcheng finished checking it out. Not bad. I wish I could move out and live alone too. I rolled my eyes. Oh, please, your family's 100 luxury apartment isn't good. Forgive me, for I am wild and free. This guy seriously didn't know how lucky he was. If I had a family as good as his, would I have ever left home? Then we both took off our shoes and lay down on the bed, staring at the blank white ceiling. Hey son, Su Yudie is really pretty. Did you give up on Liu Ruyan and start chasing her instead? Yi Tengcheng asked nosily. What nonsense. I've only known her for 3 days. I immediately denied it. A girl like that is easy to fall for at first sight. Stop acting all high and mighty. Hearing that question, I felt a familiar sting in my heart. I won't pursue her. I don't have the right. A guy with only 3 months left to live. Chasing after a girl? Wouldn't that just be ruining? I am no longer worthy of love. Yi Tengcheng was completely baffled by my sudden— You're not even going after such a— Are you sick or something? I kept staring. Yeah, I'm sick. Of course, he probably just thought I had lost my mind, or was just too scared to— Maybe he thought I was just pretending not to be. After a moment of silence, I suddenly asked, "Son, if we never see each other, will you miss me?" "Miss you my ass. The farther you go, the better. I'm already so jealous of you. You're handsome, smart, and make me look like a total loser." Yi Tengcheng ranted furiously. "I must be crazy. Why did I become friends with every time something happens at home? My parents use you as an example to pressure me. Seriously, why are you so annoying? If you didn't exist, I'd probably set off firecrackers and celebrate." I turned slightly to the side. A single tear silently slipped onto my pillow. Memories of the past flooded my mind. I had known Yi Tengcheng since the very first day of school. We quickly became close. He was always carefree, never scheming. He always seemed a little clueless and never knew what sadness was. He really treated me like a little brother. He was my biggest supporter. Whenever there were class events, he always took part in making my job much easier. When I liked Liu Ruyan, he went out of his way to help me impress her. Later, when I saw her true colors, he was the first to tell me to let her go. Even when his family made delicious food, his parents even joked that they were raising 2 sons. Yi Tengcheng finished his rant. Barely 2.5 minutes later, he was already. I stared at his sleeping face. At least I had a good friend like him. Not all my teenage memories had to be bitter ones. Bitter. "Son, promise me when I'm gone, don't be too sad. It would be best if you actually and set off some firecrackers and consider it my if in your lifetime." Detective Conan finally reaches its last episode. Send me a copy. I'll bless you with a peaceful life from the others. The next morning, on our way to school, Yi Tengcheng, acting like a hyperactive kid, kept doing imaginary, kicking pebbles on the road and randomly bumping into trees. I pointed at a ginkgo tree by the roadside. "Can you reach that leaf?" Yi Tengcheng wiped his nose. "Of course, what do I get if I do? I'll admit you're awesome." Those 4 words are the highest praise among guys. An honor worth risking everything for. Yi Tengcheng took a few steps back, then he leapt into the air and plucked the biggest ginkgo leaf. "See that, Dad? Pretty cool." Yi Tengcheng proudly handed me the leaf. "It'll look even better when it turns yellow in autumn. Autumn is so far away. I might not be around to see," I muttered softly. During the first class in the afternoon, barely 10 minutes in, Zhang Jiuan came in and the whole class looked confused. Lao Zhang had been calling for me a lot, but he's not even the class president anymore. "Mr. Zhang, you keep calling me out. The other students are starting to look at me weirdly," I complained as we walked down the hall. "Can't help it, your father is here." Zhang Jiuan shrugged. "He's here? For what?" I felt a deep unease. Ever since I started school here, Zhuang Wenjiao had only visited, and that was just on the first day of school for Reg. Even then, he only stayed for half an hour before rushing off after getting a call from his poker buddy. Since then, he never came back. Not for finals, not for the... He always had an excuse to avoid coming. Sometimes he didn't even bother making one up. He would simply say, self-righteous, "You're not a kid anymore. Do you still need your parents to pick you up?" I could only give a bitter smile. "Even when I was a kid, you never picked me up." When I entered the teacher's office, I saw my father sitting in a chair, his face dark. Next to him, Aunt Qin Shulan stood with her arms crossed. "Dad, why are you here?" I asked, expressionless. My father stood up and questioned me harshly. "Zhuangziang, you've grown wings. You actually dared to when you slapped me without listening to a word I said. Did you consider me your son?" I remained eerily calm. There is no greater sorrow. I had long given up any expectations for this. By running away from home, I was simply giving them back their happy little family of... Wasn't that what they always wanted? Qin Shulan interjected, "Xiang, your father was just emotional. He was afraid you might hurt Yuhang. If you hold a grudge over such a small thing, then you're really being too immature." She sounded like she was trying to mediate, but her tone was full of passive aggression. She conveniently ignored everything Zhuang and instead kept trying to drive a wedge between. After living with this woman for over a decade, I had long seen through her manipulative ways. "Aunt Qin, when I talk to my father..." "Please don't interrupt. What kind of attitude is that?" Qin Shulan glared at my father. "Look at the son you raised. He doesn't even respect his elders." My father exploded in rage. "I'm your father. It's my right to hit you. You should just accept it. And how dare you talk to Aunt? Apologize right now. If you can't even respect your elders, then all your studying is useless." "Elders?" I let out a mocking laugh. "Just because you brought a woman, can he become my elder? Does he have anything to do with me at all? Other than stirring up trouble, insinuating and mocking, what else can he do? For more than 10 years, I've endured this woman and her pig-headed son far too much. Even if the King of Heaven himself came, I still wouldn't recognize him. Dad, If you came here today just to argue with me, you might as well leave now. This is a school, not a place where you can act reckless. My gaze turned cold. You must come home with me today. Your grandfather heard you ran away from home, and it aggravated his old illness. Because of your foolishness and self, do you know how much trouble you've caused the family? I scolded him. I sneered. I knew it. So it was Grandpa who forced you to come get me. Otherwise, at this hour, you should be at the Just one question. Are you coming back? No, my gaze was firm. I finally escaped from that suffocating. Why would I be foolish? My defiance embarrassed him. You little bastard, do you think I can't deal with you? I showed no fear. Dad, just leave. At least for now, I'm still willing to call you Dad. Let's save each other some dignity. When I was 5, my dad had just divorced my mom. He often got drunk outside and came home wasted. He would wake me up from sleep, find random excuses, and start scolding me. He cursed me for looking like my mom, saying it made him furious. He cursed me for having a mouth that needed food. Later, when he started dating Chin Shu, he hid the fact that he had a son. He sent me to the countryside to be cared for by my grandparents. I attended kindergarten in the village. Later, thanks to my grandparents' insistence, only then did they send me so I could receive a better education. However, while my father was my legal guardian, the ones who truly raised me were my grandparents in the countryside. They regularly sent living expenses to my dad's account, and he was supposed to transfer the money. However, acting as a middleman, whenever he had bad luck gambling, he would often skim off a portion. At this moment, even though he was in the school office, my father still looked like he wanted to. His assistant, Zhang Jiwan, rushed in just in time. My father glared angrily at Zhang Jiwan. What kind of education is this school providing? Look at how he's turned out. He must have grown rebellious. You've never even attended a parent-teacher meeting. Of course, you have no idea how the school. Zhang Jiwan also. It seems you've completely left him to the school. I shouted loudly. Fine. Then today, what kind of child this school has raised? Zhang Jiwan also lost his patience. He pulled open a drawer, took out a thick stack. They were various exam results from the. See for yourself. Zhang Jiwan threw the report cards in front of my father. Picked. It was from the entrance exam 2 years ago. The name Zhuang Xiang stood out at the top. Total score 689, ranked first place in the entire grade. Then he picked up the second report. It was from the first month. Again, Zhuang Xiang ranked first. The third one was the midterm exam. The fourth was another monthly test. The fifth was the final exam. After reviewing all the results, Zhuang Wenjiao's expression flickered with uncertainty. Without exception, Zhuang Xiang's name was nailed to the top position, unshakable like a fixed nail, steady as a rock. Qin Shulan, who was standing beside him, also finished looking at. She muttered, "This school is actually quite good, is being the top of the grade." Zhang Zhiyuan looked at him as if he were a fool. There are 22 classes in the more than 1,000. What do you think? More than 1,000 students in the being the top for 2 consecutive years. How difficult that is, my father probably can't imagine. He only knows that his younger son, Zhuang Yuhang, is still in elementary. There are more than 40 students in his. By looking at Zhuang Yuhang's test ranking, you can basically know how many students are. Mr. Zhuang, you've never attended a parent-teacher meeting. In our class, many parents actually want to meet you. Zhang Jiyuan, even Chen Sheng knows me. My father was mistaken. Why? They want to ask for your advice. How to raise such an outstanding child. Zhang Jiwan let out a mocking laugh. Isn't it a bit ironic? My father's face looked terrible. For a moment, he didn't know how to respond. Mr. Zhuang, if this is not enough, I can also show you some photos. Zhang Jiyuan took out his phone. He scrolled to a dedicated album and handed it to my father. Those were the award photos from various competitions I had participated in. I didn't just win for myself, but also for my class and for my school, bringing them many other children, even if they get third place, would receive hugs and encouragement from their. Yet every time Zhuangxiang won first place, he could only stand alone on the podium, enviously watching others. Almost every time he was by me, his homeroom teacher. Please ask yourselves honest, are you truly a qualified father? Faced with Zhang Jiwan's question, my father was speechless. I listened to the teacher's words, trying hard to endure, but my eyes still turned red. Isn't love supposed to be something natural? Why is it that what others get so easily, no matter how hard I try, I still have nothing? At this moment, I have completely given up. I no longer yearn for my father's approval. Nor do I wish to see the mother I haven't met in years. After all, I have never been their pride. With only 3 months left, please let me face death. The office fell into a long silence. Finally, my father spoke. Teacher, Even though Zhuangziang has good grades, that doesn't give him the right to talk back or run away from home. If I lived in such a household, I would run away too. What? How can you say such a thing? My father was furious. Precisely because I am still being polite to you. Otherwise, my words would be even. Zhang Zhuan retorted sharply, not backing down in the slightest. At that moment, Qinshulan's phone suddenly rang. The sharp ringtone shattered the tense atmosphere. She answered, said a few words, and quickly hung up. Then she leaned close to my father and whispered, Yuhang got into a fight at school. The teacher wants us to go there immediately. My father immediately glared at me with, I'll ask you one more time. Are you coming home or not? No, that place is not my home. I had made up my mind. Fine. If you don't come back today, then don't ever come back in this. My father slammed his chair and Qinshulan followed him, her expression barely hiding her schadenfreude. Only teacher Zhao and I remained in the office. All my strength drained away. Zhuangziang, don't be sad. There are still many people in this world who love you. Like me, like Yi Tengcheng. Think about us more. Zhang Jiuan gently comforted. Mr. Zhang, thank you, I said, biting my lips tightly. I tried my best to hold back my tears. Mr. Zhang, can I take the afternoon off? In my current emotional state, I won't be able to concentrate in class. All right, I'll approve your leave request. Take some time to relax. Walking out of the office, I wandered aimlessly, lost in thought. Suddenly a ding sound. I took out my phone from my pocket and saw a message. Zhuangziang, you big idiot. Are you feeling down again? I quickly typed a reply. How did you know I took the afternoon off? Little Butterfly replied instantly. Come pick me up outside. It's too high. I don't dare. After receiving the message, I immediately headed to the spot where I had jumped the wall. From a distance, I saw Su Yudie sitting on the wall. Her feet, in white canvas shoes, were swinging back and forth. The wall is so high. How did you climb up there? I borrowed a ladder. From the equipment room, Su Yudie said. I was even more puzzled. A school beauty like her, carrying a ladder across the playground. Wouldn't the security guards stop her? What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and catch me, Su Yudie urged. I quickly stretched out my arm, gesturing for her to jump down. Without hesitation, Su Yudie leaped off the wall. She landed precisely in my arms. She was very light. Holding her was effortless. Looking at her up close, her face was flawless. My breathing became heavy and my heart raced. Are you just going to keep holding me like this? Su Yudie's cheeks turned red. I snapped back to reality, quickly setting her down in a panic. Little Butterfly, you skipped class again? Won't your homeroom teacher scold you? I didn't skip class. I have a leave slip. Yeah, right. How is that possible? You think I'm a 3-year-old kid? Su Yudie then took off her shoulder bag. She unzipped it. She pulled out a stack of leave slips. All of them had the homeroom teacher's signature. But the date section was left blank, meaning that Su Yudie could fill in any date she wanted, allowing her to leave school whenever. Seriously? I widened my eyes in shock. Is this what having an amazing homeroom? Wait, if you have a leave slip, why did you still climb over the wall? It's faster that way. And I can get food quicker. Su Yudie's foodie logic left me speechless. I always felt that this girl was mysterious, hard to figure out. So I changed the topic. How did you know I was upset? Su Yudie raised her right hand, extended her index finger, and poked my. Then she tiptoed closer to my ear. Because we're friends. We have a telepathic bond. The warm breath from her words sent a tingling sensation down my telepathic bond. That explanation is way too vague. Come with me. Su Yudie naturally grabbed my wrist and led me out of the food street. We walked down a long staircase. Then she took off her shoes and socks. Her delicate jade-like feet emerged. She stepped lightly onto the smooth river pebble. White waves splashed up, dampening the hem of her sapphire blue. Take off your shoes and join me. Su Yudie waved at me. But it's class time. Isn't playing in the water right now a bad idea? I hesitated. Have you always followed the rules so strictly? Her words struck a nerve. She was right. Why should I always follow the rule? I quickly took off my shoes, rolled up my pants, and carefully stepped onto the pebble. I stood beside Su Yudie. She cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted towards the gently flowing river. Zhuangziang the sound was carried by the wind. Echoes resonated back. Zhuangziang is a big fool. Big fool. Why are you calling me a big fool again? I wouldn't watch One Piece. I'm not satisfied at all because you're always unhappy. Torturing yourself makes you a big fool. Su Yudie pouted her cherry-like lips. She shouted again, Big fool, you have to be happy every day. I turned my head, looking at the perfect side profile of the little A deep sorrow surged in my heart. I felt like I was poisoned by this girl. Even though I knew I shouldn't, I was still falling deep, unable to pull myself out. How will I face that farewell 3 months later? I fought with all my might to hold back, yet the sound I made still carried a sobbing tone. 2 days ago, when I saw my diagnosis report at the hospital, I felt dazed for a short while, but I wasn't particularly sad, because this indifferent world never gave me much to hold on to. But at this moment, my heart was filled with reluctance. Why did I meet you? Only when I'm suffering from a terminal. I tried hard to stop my tears. Little butterfly, I'm not sad anymore. Let the river wash away all your sorrows. From now on, you have to be happy every day. Su Yudie laughed. Suddenly, a huge wave struck. The river water rose a little higher. It reached Su Yudie's calves. She had to lift her dress with both hands and step back. The rock was slippery. Be careful, don't fall. I quickly reminded her. Carry me up. Su Yudie's face showed panic. Without hesitation, I reached out and lifted her into a princess. Anyway, I had already carried her twice before. I was quite used to it by now. We sat down on the grass. Su Yudie placed her little feet on my legs to dry. I asked myself honestly, I never had a foot fetish before, but the fair and delicate feet still made me steal a few glances. Big fool, why do you keep looking at my feet? Su Yudie asked, blushing. I wasn't. I was looking at the grass. I denied it firmly. You looked 7 times already. My eyes need a place to land. Seeing that I was exposed, my cheeks felt a little warm. All right, I'm not blaming you. Help me put my shoes on. You have hands, don't you? Humph. You stingy, I muttered as Su Yudie and I sat on the grass, gazing blankly at the sky, envying the drifting cloud. A few butterflies occasionally fluttered across our... If only I were a little butterfly, she sighed. Then I could fly across the river and see the scenery over. Su Yudie said wistfully, we could fly a kite and let it see for us, I suggested with a smile. But then Su Yudie glanced at the sun's position. She shook her head and said, it's too late. I need to catch the bus soon. Can't you stay a little longer? I was a bit disappointed. No, my grandma will be angry if I'm late. From Su Yudie's tone, it seemed her grandmother was quite strict. She had to catch the 6:10 bus on time. Little butterfly, tomorrow is Saturday, no school. Let's come here and fly a kite. I compromised. Okay, let's meet at Shishan Park tomorrow morning. Su Yudie agreed instantly. Just then, my dad's call came through. I stared at it for a dozen seconds before sliding. Dad, what now? Zhuangzi, your brother got into a fight at school. It's a bit troublesome. Come over right away. His tone was harsh, almost like an order. Isn't fighting normal for him? What does this have to do? I felt puzzled. The student he fought with. His homeroom teacher is your old elementary Chinese. Come say a few good words. This was just a way to downplay. Yuhang's elementary school was my alma mater. Since I was always the top scorer in every exam, many teachers still remembered Zhuangziang. This time, Yuhang fought with a student from another. He broke the student's nose. That student's parents were out of town, but the homeroom teacher refused to let it go. She insisted that my dad give an explanation. When she found out the teacher had taught me, my dad immediately tried to use that, but she didn't care at all. She thought he was making things up. How could 2 kids from the same family be so different? One is Zhuangziang, the other is Yuhang. My dad wanted to prove he was my father. But after searching through his phone's photo album he couldn't find a single picture of me. Left with no choice, he reluctantly called me, asking me to come over. He hit someone. If you need to compensate. If you need to apologize, I'm busy right now. I don't have time for this. I raised you this long, and you have no gratitude at all? Yuhang is your brother. When he's in trouble as his older brother, you won't. You've studied so much, and yet you don't understand the most basic principles of being. You should be discussing that with your precious son. I won't get involved. I ignored my dad's endless ranting and decisively hung up. After that, Su Yudie and I walked to the bus. Some students who had just finished school were already. The moment Su Yudie appeared, she instantly caught the attention of all the boys. This girl was just too beautiful. It was as if even the air around her smelled sweeter. Yet I felt uncomfortable. I really wanted to grab a big mask and cover her face with it. Bus number 19 slowly approached from the street corner. It meant our goodbye was coming soon, even though we would see each other again. Yet I still felt reluctant. I'll wait for you at the park tomorrow. You must come. Of course I'll come. If you don't believe me, let's pink. Su Yudie extended her right pinky. I frowned. We're 18 already. Isn't pinky swearing a bit childish? And so many people are watching. Hurry up! Su Yudie was impatient. She grabbed my hand. Our pinkies linked together. Pinky promise, hang it high, no changes for 100. Su Yudie chanted the rhyme. She even sealed it with a thumb press. Very ceremonial. A pinky promise, the purest form of trust among children. Yet in the adult world, people are bound by countless laws and morals. But even so, betrayal and broken promises remain common. People go back on goodbye, little butterfly. Goodbye, big fool. I watched as the bus drove away. Only when its taillights disappeared did I turn to leave. But after just a few steps, a black sedan pulled up beside me. The window rolled down. Liu Ruyan's face appeared. Ever since I met Little Butterfly, this face seemed less and less fitting. Zhuangziang, tomorrow is Saturday. I have nothing to do, Liu Ruyan said. She thought that by saying that, I would take the initiative to invite her out. Unexpectedly, I calmly replied, if I'm free, your grades have dropped a lot recently. Liu Ruyan frowned. She hadn't expected me to be so indifferent. I gave you an easy way out, yet you refused to take it. Jiboda invited me to watch a movie tomorrow, Liu Ruyan added. Well, have fun then. I replied casually. Liu Ruyan, not hearing the reaction she wanted, was completely baffled. Zhuangziang, what's wrong with you? Just because I didn't immediately accept you gave up halfway and stopped chasing. What I said last time about that was just a spur-of-the-moment outburst. Can't you tell that I have such a kind heart? As long as you keep trying and show me your sincerity, your chances of winning me over are still high. You can't park here by the roadside. You should get going. I left those words behind and walked away, leaving Liu Ruyan standing there. It was the frustration of losing control over a back at my rented place. I saw Yi Tengcheng standing at the door. I smiled and asked, son, what are you doing here? Yi Tengcheng responded grumpily, you skipped class again this afternoon. I was worried about you. And why wasn't your phone reachable? Only then did I remember that I had put my phone on so I wouldn't have to answer my dad's. I quickly apologized. That's on me. Son, you've been skipping class and taking leave all the time. Are you hiding something from me? Even though Yi Tengcheng was usually careful, he still noticed something was off. A straight-A student, ranked first in the skipping class so frequently. That was unheard of. Facing my best buddy, I decided to keep my illness a secret. If I told him later, maybe the sadness would come later too. Yi Tengcheng was such a carefree. If he cried, it wouldn't suit him at all. My dad made a scene at school. I was in a bad mood, so I asked old Zhang. That was true, though I left out some details. Your gambling addict dad still has the nerve to show up. If you don't want to be accused of patricide, I'll beat him up for you. Yi Tengcheng said, clenching his fist. Forget it. I'm afraid you wouldn't win. A warmth rose in my heart. In life, having a true friend, that's what Mr. Lu Xun once said. A real quote from Lu Xun. I originally planned to eat instant pickled mustard noodles, but Yi Tengcheng insisted that I should go have dinner at his house instead. On the way, he called his mom and asked her to cook a couple of. I really liked Yi Tengcheng's parents. They were sincere and kind, gentle and warm, unlike my own father, who pretended but was full of aggression, and unlike my stepmother, Qin Shulan, who was calculating. Xiao Zhuang is here. Have a seat, you two. Dinner will be ready soon. As soon as we walked in, his parents warmly greeted us. Uncle, Auntie, sorry for disturbing you. Uncle Tianyu was sitting on the sofa watching TV. He smiled and said, Xiao, we should be thanking you instead. Ever since Yi Tengcheng's, his grades have improved a lot. The evening news was playing on TV. Medical experts stated that due to environmental deterioration, modern life stress is increasing. Cancer patients are getting younger and younger. Many young people at the prime of their lives are struck by incurable disease. Uncle Tianyu sighed as he watched. He turned to remind us, Yi Tengcheng, Xiao, you two need to eat properly at school. Take care of your health. Dad, don't worry. My body's fit enough to be a pilot. Yi Tengcheng patted his chest confidently. I, on the other hand, bit my lower lip and said nothing. Meanwhile, Zhuang Wenjiao had spent the entire afternoon handling Zhuang Yuhang's fight. He had to pay a hefty compensation, then forcefully pressed Zhuang Yuhang's head down. Only then was the matter barely resolved. By the time he got home, it was completely dark. Yuhang from now on. 'Cause less trouble, Zhuang Wenjiao said in a rare, stern tone. Why are you yelling so loudly? You'll scare Yuhang. Qin Shulan immediately defended him. She said sarcastically, isn't it all because of Zhuang? He hit Yuhang the other day. That's why he was in a bad mood and got into a fight at school. Zhuang Yuhang immediately took advantage of the. That's right. It's all Zhuang Xiang's fault. I hope he dies outside and never comes back. He probably won't be back for a while. Zhuang Wenjiao felt utterly exhausted. Looking around, the house was a complete mess. The floor was filthy. Normally, Zhuangziang would silently clean up. But in just 2 days of his absence, the house had turned into chaos. Just then, his phone rang again. It was the old man from the countryside calling. He quickly picked up and spoke soothingly. He's just throwing a tantrum. He'll come back after staying out for a few days. I'm his father. Disciplining him is my right. Hospitalized? He's so young. What could possibly... After calming the old man down, Zhuang Wenjiao collapsed onto the sofa. Scenes from the school office earlier that kept replaying in his mind. Was Zhuangziang really that outstanding? As his father, why did I never know? Qin Shulan, sitting nearby, complained. Zhuangziang is so good at, yet he never bothered to tutor Yuhang. That's why Yuhang is at the bottom of his class. He has no sense of responsibility as an old... In the end, he's just selfish. What's the use of being smart if you have bad character? Zhuang Wenjiao suddenly felt a surge of anger. He slammed the coffee table. He's my son. Since when do you have the right to criticize him? Why don't you take care of your own son and stop him from causing trouble? He once thought that without Zhuangziang, his home would be a happy family of 3. Now he realized how naive that was. After dinner, Yi Tengcheng and I slipped into the bedroom. All right, son, time to confess. Where did you go this afternoon? Itojo looked at me with the eyes of an interrogator. I sat by the river with Little Butterfly all after. I admitted frankly. Little Butterfly again? Itojo stared into my eyes as if brewing. Then he let out a long sigh. You're doomed. You've fallen in love. I hurriedly denied it. Stop talking nonsense. We're just good friends. Ask your own heart. Do you really just want to be... Itojin laughed. That question made me feel a little guilt. Little Butterfly is such a cute girl. Any normal guy would have feelings, but I'm not a normal guy. I'm sick. I have no right to fall in... Son, she's a good girl. 100 times better than Liu. You better work hard. In the future, I'll be your best man. Itochin said with a hopeful vision of being a best man. My heart ached. That future was too... I didn't dare to imagine it. I suddenly realized I was becoming more and more... I couldn't bear, nor could I bear to leave Little Butterfly. But the illness wouldn't allow me to have such long-term plans. It felt like fate was playing the big... I thought of my date tomorrow morning, so I didn't linger at Itojo's house. I returned to my rental, looking up at the night sky. The stars spread across the sky. They say that when people die, they turn... Which one would I become? I picked up my phone, as if driven by some unseen force. I dialed Little... Sorry, the number you have dialed is out of service. Please try again later, just like last time. Every night, Little Butterfly would disappear and be unreachable. Then the next day, she would suddenly appear, like an elusive shooting star streaking across the sky. It illuminated my once dark life. The next day, I arrived at Shishan Park. I wandered around. Then I found Su Yudie by the flower bed. It was the 4th. She was still dressed the same way, completely spotless, as if brand new. She was holding a paper box, feeding the stray cats with a look full of love in her eyes. A group of stray cats of different colors surrounded her in the center, meowing nonstop. Hoosie, where have you been? You're so dirty. Pudding, have you been secretly dating behind your sister? Cheese, you've gotten so skinny. Eat more. I stood at a distance. Listening to Su Yudie talk to the cats, I found it really amusing. She had actually given each stray cat a unique name. Little Butterfly, I called out to her. You're here. Su Yudie turned and smiled. In that instant, the flowers lost their... I let out a sigh of relief. At least she didn't call me Big Dummy. I shook the breakfast in my hand. You feed the kitten. I'll feed you. Su Yudie, the foodie, had no resistance to delicious food. She immediately grabbed the bag from my... sat by the flower bed and started eating happily. Even while eating, she didn't forget to share... I kept staring at her. A faint smile appeared at such a beautiful girl. Yet she had no reservations at all. She didn't care about how she looked. Why are you looking at me? Eat too, you big dummy. Su Yudie glared at me. I quickly looked away. I picked up the warm milk and I felt a little strange. Not being called a big dummy felt unnatural. While eating, Su Yudie's eyes occasionally wandered around. Her eyes occasionally glanced around, as if she was looking for something. I noticed and asked, what are you looking at? Su Yudie frowned slightly. Tom didn't come. Tom, I was a little confused. He's a little gray kitten. A bit silly most of the time. Kind of like that cat in the cartoon. Immediately, an image appeared in my mind. A foolish cat that never... That cat brought endless laughter to countless children's childhoods. If it's a stray cat, it might have gone somewhere else. It'll come back in a few days. I comforted Su Yudie. No, it won't, she murmured. I came to feed him every weekend. He wouldn't just leave me behind, would... Over there was a sanitation worker. Why don't we ask her? I pointed to a distant cleaning cart. Then we got up and walked toward the lady. But for some reason, a bad feeling crept into my heart. Auntie, have you seen a little gray kitten? It's about this big, quite small. It has a white spot on its ear. Su Yudie patiently described Tom's features to the sanitation worker. That cat is dead. The woman answered, What? The milk carton in Su Yudie's hand fell, her small face filled with horror. It was hit by a car while crossing. Someone buried it by the roadside later. The lady, perhaps afraid of scaring Su Yudie, tried to soften the story. How could this happen? How could this happen? Su Yudie repeated over and tears streamed down her face. Standing beside her, I could clearly feel her sadness. The lady sighed. Such a kind girl. Crying like this over a stray cat. Little butterfly, don't cry. Cats have 9 lives. Su Yudie leaned on my shoulder, breathing softly. I like Tom the most. He's so adorable. My hand hovered in the air. Mustering courage, I gently touched the girl. Little butterfly, don't be sad. Every cat will die. Just like every person. I paused for a long time before adding, even the air will die. Su Yudie lifted her head, tears glistening in her eyes. She seemed not to understand what I gazed into her eyes. People always part ways. Just like you and me. One day, we will no longer see each other. Why? Do you not want to be my friend anymore? Su Yudie asked, choking back. No, little butterfly. I want to be your best friend forever. Then don't leave me. I tried to put it gently, but it was futile. Even I wasn't sure if I would have the courage in 3 months to face that inevitable farewell. Dwelling on this unsolvable question would only make us sadder. I forced a smile. No more crying. We promised to be happy we still have to fly kites together. Let me cry a little more, just a little longer. Su Yudie pleaded. Okay, there's still time. You can cry a bit longer. I looked at her with tenderness. When I leave, will you cry for me? If you don't cry, it feels like we're not close enough. But if you cry too much, it will make my heart ache. So just cry a little. After a long while, the morning sun gradually rose, shining on the grass and flowers. The stray cats finished their meal. I took out a tissue. All right, let's go fly a kite. Then I'll take you for some delicious food. You said that when you're sad, you should eat lots of good food. Su Yudie rubbed her eyes, took a few deep breaths, and adjusted her emotions. Then she slung her shoulder bag over. Let's go to your little house. Why are we going there? I was a bit confused. To make a kite, of course. What else did you think we were going to do? Su Yudie countered. Only then did I realize I had assumed we were going to buy a kite, but Su Yudie wanted to make one herself. Obviously, the latter was much more meaningful. Making a kite by hand and watching it soar high in the sky was a very fulfilling experience. Upon arriving at the rental, Su Yudie pulled out bamboo strips from her bag, shuan paper, cotton thread, candles, a hatchet, paintbrushes, and other materials. Her level of preparation left me speechless. You're really going to make a kite yourself? Of course. Do I look like I'm joking? Su Yudie said seriously. Then, as she started making the kite, I was utterly amazed. This girl was incredibly skillful. Meanwhile, I felt like a fool, just standing there watching, completely unable to help. Su Yudie fastened the bamboo strips with cotton, shaping them into a butterfly frame. Then she glued the shuan paper onto it and trimmed off the excess. At this point, the kite was basically complete. However, to transform from a mere toy into a work of art, the most important part was the design. Then, Su Yudie spent more than half an hour painting before finally putting down. She took a deep breath, and before us appeared a lifelike butterfly. Little butterfly, you're amazing. I couldn't stop praising her. I couldn't stop praising. My grandma taught me this. I used to make one every year when I was. Su Yudie was also very pleased with her. Then she picked up the brush again, and in the blank space she had left, she wrote a small line, Zhuangziang. Big idiot. It's one thing for you to tease me, but why are you writing it on the... I muttered in protest. Let the kite carry away your stupid. Maybe then you'll become a little smarter. Su Yudie chuckled. I refused to back down. I picked up the brush and wrote a line beside hers. Little butterfly, little fool. Su Yudie's handwriting was while mine was free-flowing. As a result, the 12 characters crowded to creating a messy black patch, making the colors of the kite a little unbalanced. It doesn't look good, Su Yudie pouted. I picked up the brush again, dipped it in red paint, and drew a heart between the 2 lines of text. That touch of red was like the finishing stroke. Suddenly, the colors became more harmonious. However, As Su Yudie looked at the heart between our names, her face turned red, her eyes shy and delicate. Then we headed outside to the grassy field by the sky was a clear blue, a gentle breeze was blowing. It was the perfect weather for kite flying. Just like that, we ran back and forth across the grass. The butterfly-shaped kite soared higher, becoming smaller and smaller, just like a real butterfly. Su Yudie sat down on the grass, grinning from ear to ear. Sometimes happiness is just that simple and pure. I quietly watched Su Yudie. Sunlight streamed through the clouds, illuminating her entire being like a fleeting bloom, radiating brilliance. A daughter ready to wed. Her noble family. This is a famous passage from the book describing the scene of a young woman getting married. I recalled what Ito said last night about being and a silent pain rose in my heart again. Su Yudie dressed as a bride must be unbelievably beautiful. But unfortunately, I will never get to. The man who gets to marry her must have saved the entire galaxy in his past life. The kite soared higher and higher, becoming just a tiny dot beneath the sun grew more blinding, making it hard to see. Su Yudie then took out a craft knife from her backpack. What are you doing? I asked in surprise. Cutting the kite string. Only then will the butterfly truly be free. Su Yudie's eyes were clear and but we spent so long making this. Losing it would be such a waste. I wanted to stop her. I've already enjoyed the process of making it, and that's enough for me. Now, I just want to let it fly further away. Su Yudie answered firmly. In her heart, the kite was not just a toy. It was like a living butterfly. I didn't argue anymore. Otherwise, I'd seem too petty. Without a trace of hesitation, Su Yudie decisively cut the butterfly was finally unbound, drifting and swaying in the wind, flying towards the horizon, carrying the names of Zhuangziang and seeking true freedom. I stuffed my hands in my pocket, watching the kite disappear into the sky. Then, I turned my gaze back to the girl beside me, back to reality. It was time for a happy meal again. Su Yudie insisted on having an all-you-can. She took out all her money, counted it, and said, I have 46. I'll keep 4 yuan for the bus fare. The remaining 42 yuan is free. If it's not enough, I shook my head. You don't have to pay. I already said last time that it's my treat. Su Yudie was adamant. I had no choice but to accept the money. Out of my 6,000 yuan, 1,200 had already leaving me with just over at my spending level. That should be enough for 3 months, as long as I don't splurge on food too often. But with such a little foodie around, expenses had gone up a bit, exceeded my warning. Grilling meat requires doing it yourself. It adds more engagement compared to eating other. Su Yudie brushed oil onto the grill pan and placed various types of meat on it. Soon, the sizzling oil started to. Once the grilling was almost done, he picked up the first piece of, dipped it in the sauce, wrapped it in a rolled it up, and brought it to my mouth. Open your mouth. I obediently opened my mouth and accepted his feeding. The first bite was immensely satisfying. I was peeling shrimp for Su Yudie. My hands were all greasy, and soon the glistening shrimp meat pie on the plate in front of the little butt. This scene had the air of deep mutual respect. Other diners cast envious glances our way. Wow, that couple is so loving. And the girl is so beautiful. She's also so gentle, and the guy is really handsome too. Even the way he peels shrimp is. Some comments drifted over, giving a small boost to my vanity. If only the little butterfly were truly mine. How wonderful would that be? Actually, I had been to this once with Liu Ruyan. Back then, I had to grill the meat, peel the shrimp, and pour the drinks, while Linda Xiao did absolutely nothing, just sat there, eating and drinking. I was busy the whole time, barely got a few bites myself, and before I knew it, Liu Ruyan said I had no choice but to hurriedly pay the bill, and after leaving, I even bought 2 plain buns to fill my. Such a pitiful simp. Compared to the little butter, Liu Ruyan was really nothing. What do you want to drink? Still Coke? I asked with a smile. Su Yudie gently beckoned me over. Come a little closer. Lower your head. Drinking a beverage shouldn't be this Su Yudie leaned close to my ear. Her red lips parted, and she whispered a bold idea. My pupils shrank instantly. What? Drink alcohol. Su Yudie blinked curiously. I heard people say alcohol tastes great. After drinking, you feel like you're floating. I've always been a good kid since childhood, and I've never really drunk alcohol. I only heard adults say drinking makes you lose control. Our eyes met as we tested the limits of danger. In the end, I made up my mind. Fine, let's drink. I only have 3 months left to live. I'll break all the rules. I don't want to be a good kid anymore. If I die without ever knowing, then what a waste of life that would be. The barbecue restaurant had self-serve beer, so I grabbed 2 bottles and poured them into our glasses. The golden liquid bubbled with white foam, giving off a faint fragrance. Su Yudie raised her glass. You big dummy. Every day should be happy. Cheers, cheers. My dear friend. We clinked our glasses with a crisp sound, and then both chugged our drinks. The moment the beer entered my mouth, bitterness with a sharp sting of alcohol. I frowned. Compared to milk tea or Coke, this stuff tasted awful, like horse urine. I sneaked a glance at Su Yudie. Her eyebrows were also tightly furrowed. She didn't seem to enjoy it either. But as our eyes met, neither of us wanted to admit defeat, so we forced ourselves to finish the beer. Little Butterfly's face turned pink before my eyes, making her look even cute. Shuangzi, does beer taste good? Su Yudie asked hesitantly. Of course it does. I drink it all the time at home. I bluffed. Me too, I think it's delicious. I want another glass. Let's grab 2 more bottles later. Su Yudie was determined to challenge. She filled both glasses again. I swallowed nervously and instantly regretted it. Trying to save face, I ate 2 shrimp. Then we clinked our glasses. A crisp sound echoed in the air, and we both chugged our drinks down in big gulps, secretly glancing at each other from the corner, making sure neither of us. Little Butterfly's face turned even. Her whole energy became more lively, and she started talking a lot. She kept chattering nonstop, sharing jokes she had been keeping for years. Beer wasn't even that strong, but I was a total lightweight. After just a few drinks, my head felt dizzy, and my cheeks started to heat. The little butterfly in front of me seemed to multiply. She told it. I barely understood it, but laughed anyway. After all, eating with Little Butterfly was something to be happy about. Before we realized it, we had each finished 2 bottles of beer. I forced myself to stay, stumbling my way to pay the bill. But when I came back, I saw Little Butterfly slumped over, her head resting on her arm, looking adorably drowsy. Little Butterfly, let's go home and sleep. I nudged her. You big dummy, carry me. Su Yudie slurred her words. If I were sober, carrying her wouldn't be a problem. But now I could barely walk straight myself. I wanted to, but I had no, so we had to support each other, stumbling our way out of the barbecue place. Luckily, my apartment wasn't far. It took all my energy just to toss Su Yudie onto the bed. I helped her take off her canvas shoes and tugged down her skirt a little, covering her long, smooth legs. You sleep here. I'll go sleep on the sofa outside, I whispered in Su Yudie's ear. At that moment, Su Yudie suddenly wrapped her arms around my neck. She pulled my head down. I was caught off guard and lost my balance. As I leaned forward, my lips landed right on her soft, cherry-red lips. My mind went blank with a loud buzz. My heart felt like it was about to leap. Little Butterfly's lips were soft and moist. That brief 2.5 seconds felt unforgettable. She had stolen my first kiss. Looking at Su Yudie's delicate face, it felt like a dream. I quickly covered her with a blanket, then rushed out of the room. Even though she was the one I still felt like I had done something wrong. Lying on the sofa, I tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. That brief 2.5 seconds kept replaying over and over in my mind. I took out my Bluetooth earphones and played some music, trying to calm myself down. As the sad melody played, the drunken haze washed over me like ocean waves, and I drifted into sleep. Of course, the protagonist of my dream was Little Butterfly. The scenes made my heart race and were beyond words. If I wrote another line, it would, I suppose. No one would want to read it, so let's just skip it. I had no idea how much time. Suddenly, I felt my nose itching and sneezed loudly. Opening my eyes, I saw Su Yudie's beaming smile. She held a feather she had found from who knows where. Giggling, "You're pranking me again." I rubbed my nose. "You lazy pig, the sun is almost setting and you're still sleeping." Su Yudie made a playful face. Suddenly, I felt something was off. My face flushed with it. I quickly got up and rushed into the bedroom, locking the door. I needed to hide the evidence first. I'd wash it later. Several minutes passed before I came out. Su Yudie seemed to have noticed I had changed my Wangxiang. You didn't take advantage of me while I was drunk, did you? You don't remember? I'm surprised I don't remember. All I know is that we were and when I opened my eyes, Su Yudie looked completely innocent. I thought, where in the world is someone like you? Getting drunk to stealing someone's first kiss, and now turning the tables on me. I had no choice but to say bravely, "You reeked of alcohol, smelling awful. Who would want to take advantage of? But you took off my shoes. If you didn't take off your shoes, wouldn't you dirty my—" Su Yudie thought it made sense and decided not to argue further. But remembering the way I looked at her little feet yesterday, I still felt a bit weird. Inside the round fishbowl on the table, 2 red goldfish were swimming freely. Su Yudie picked up some fish food and tossed some into the water. Then, resting her chin on her hands, she enviously said, "Big idiot. Look how happy they are. Nothing like you. You're not a fish. How do you know they're happy?" I refuted. "You're not me. How do you know that I don't know the happiness of fit? Su Yudie immediately shot back. You're not me. How do you know that I don't know that you don't know the happiness of that one sentence made Su Yudie think for a long time, almost frying her brain CPU. She reached out and gave me a heart on my arm. Serves you, I cried out in pain. Indeed, you can't reason with a girl, Zhuangziang. I'm going back now. Su Yudie glanced out the window. The dusk had begun to set in. Do you have to leave so early? I can still treat you to dinner. I tried to keep her from leaving. I have to catch the 6:10 bus. Su Yudie's eyes also showed reluctance, but she still had to get home before dark. I felt a bit helpless. I guess she probably had strict parents. After all, it's not very safe for a girl to stay out too late. We then walked to the bus stop. Sitting on the bench, we ate oden while waiting for bus 19. Although I was reluctant, the bus, indifferent to human emotions, still turning from the street corner. Will you come again tomorrow? I hurriedly asked. What's fun about tomorrow? Su Yudie blinked her big bright eyes. We could go to the library and read joke book. I blurted out, then immediately regretted how lame the idea. It was the weekend. Not many people were waiting. As soon as the doors opened, Su Yudie stepped onto the bus. Watching her slender figure, I felt a deep sense of loss. I should have suggested something more fun. Just as the bus doors were closing, Su Yudie suddenly turned back. Sure. See you tomorrow morning at the library entrance. The bus carrying the girl away. I spun around a few times on the spot, grinning like a fool. I couldn't wait for tomorrow to come, even though it meant I was one step closer to death. Back at my rental, I made myself a bowl of pickled mustard ramen. Around 8 p.m., I sent Little Butterfly a message. What do you want for breakfast tomorrow? But just like last time, I got no reply. After a long while, my phone suddenly rang loudly. I quickly picked it up. It was a video call from my friend Ito Shiro. Son, why is it you? On the screen, Ito Shiro looked frustrated. Judging by your tone, you sound disappointed. I forced a smile. Not at all. Where did you go this weekend? Play my ass. You already know. My mom signed me up for cram school, Ito Shiro complained. Then he started venting to me, saying how unbearable the cram classes were. Sitting with a bunch of top students almost killed him. I consoled him for a while, and he finally calmed down. I really want to find someone to date. Ito Shiro suddenly asked, Son, have you ever kissed a girl? What? I've never even been in a relationship. Who would I kiss? I felt a bit guilty, stammering as I spoke. What do you think a girl's lips taste like? Strawberry, maybe? Ito Shiro guessed curiously. No way. I think it should be beer-flavored, I said without thinking. Did you get your head stuck in a... How could a girl's lips taste like beer? Ito Shiro shot me a disdainful look. Forget it. There's no point talking to you about. It's not like you've kissed anyone anyway. We continued chatting about random things before finally ending the call. I recalled those unforgettable 2.5 seconds. Once again, I confirmed a girl's lips really do taste like beer. Suddenly, I remembered that there was still something shameful hidden in my... I hurried to the bathroom, poured out half a bag of laundry, and started scrubbing. The memories of that dream still made my heart race. And after washing the clothes, I freshened up. Lying in bed, I played on my phone and opened the class group. I saw that the new class monitor, Jibota, had sent. The gist of it was, next Tuesday and Wednesday, there would be a school-wide monthly exam. He told everyone to prepare it was just a simple announcement. Something the whole class would know but he just had to act all official, demanding that everyone reply to. Most people couldn't be bothered to respond. Only a handful of students replied. The teacher replied with just received. Jibota was not satisfied. He sent another message. Why are so few people respond? Is everyone else asleep? Ito Shiro couldn't stand it. He immediately replied bluntly, stop acting like a dictator. When Zhuangziang was class monitor, he never made such a fuss. I'm the class monitor now. I make the rules. Jibota quickly typed a response. A new leader must establish authority. If I don't assert myself now, I won't gain any respect, and my work in the future will be difficult. He silently held in his frustration. He wanted to prove to Liu Ruyan and to all the teachers and classmates that he was better than Zhuangziang. But things didn't go as he wished. The students simply didn't care. Jibota didn't see the uniform replies received he had imagined. Instead, he was met with sarcasm. It's just a class monitor position. Zhuangziang didn't even want it, and it fell to him. He really thinks he's something now. In my mind, Zhuangziang is the only class monitor, 2 years in a row as the top student of the entire grade. Who else could break that record? Jibota gritted his teeth in frustration. The fire of resentment burned fiercely in his heart. At that moment, I casually sent 2 words, received. Immediately, the school beauty Liu Ruyan followed with Then Ito Shiro, Zhang Yu and all the others started replying, received. Seeing this, Jibota finally realized that my position in the class was something he could never shake. After sending, I put down my phone, read a magazine for a bit, filled with it, looking forward to tomorrow's library date with Early the next morning, I rode my old bicycle to the library. There, I saw Su Yudie standing under the poplar tree at the entrance. She looked as stunning as a fairy who had fallen into Little Butterfly, I shouted loudly. You're so slow. The breakfast I bought is almost cold. Su Yudie pooted and complained, sorry. I'll be faster next time. I quickly apologized. Meeting up with Little Butterfly, I always looked forward to the next time, and the next, and hopefully seeing her every day. It was the weekend. So there were a lot of people. I told Su Yudie to find a seat first while I went to look for books. I hadn't finished Demigods and Semi, so I wanted to continue. After getting the book, I went to the reading. I searched around and finally found Su Yudie in a corner. Why did you choose such a remote spot? It feels kind of far. Let me tell you. I just encountered something really scary. Su Yudie said mysteriously. I was stunned. With so many people in, what could possibly be scary? Seeing my disbelief, she hurriedly said, I clearly saw lots of empty seats, but every time I tried to sit, someone nearby would tell me the seat was taken. That's it. I held back a laugh. Isn't that scary? I saw empty seats, but they could see someone sitting there. Su Yudie looked completely serious. For a moment, I couldn't tell if she was joking or just being naive. I chuckled. All right, let's just read. This time, Su Yudie wasn't reading joke books. She was completely focused on a book called Nanjing, one of the 4 great classics of traditional Chinese. Legend says it was written by Bian. I was surprised. Why are you suddenly reading medical books? I whispered. I'm just looking. Just curious. Su Yudie casually replied, is someone in your family sick? No. Seeing that she didn't want to talk about it, I decided not to press further. After all, matters of life and death aren't things most people like to discuss. Thinking about it, I realized I was already terminally. Did I really have the energy to care? As an old saying goes, life and death coexist. Death and life intertwine. Everything in this world is constantly being born and grow, just as everything is constantly dying. When people die, is everything truly gone? Around 11:30 a.m., Su Yudie quietly reached out her hand and scratched the back of my hand. What's wrong? I looked up. I'm hungry, Su Yudie pouted, looking pitiful. I was speechless. You eat like you were starved. Didn't we just have shumai not long ago? We returned the books and walked out of the library. Su Yudie finally got to and looked especially happy, like a bird freed from its cage. What are we eating for lunch? I counted on my fingers. Hot pot, barbecue skewers, milk tea, ice cream. As I listed a whole bunch of delicious food, Little Butterfly was practically drooling, but then I changed my tone. We can't eat any of those. The light in her eyes instantly dimmed. I'm just a broke student with no source of income. If I splurged on food every day, I'd end up starving on the streets. I reached out and poked her forehead. Su Yudie quickly unzipped her backpack, took out 2 20-yuan bills, and said, this is all I have, but you need to save some for my bus fare. I laughed. Is your bag a magic purse? Does money appear in it every day? Su Yudie shook her head. No. My grandma puts money in it for me every morning. But since I bought you breakfast today, there's not much left. Hearing that, I felt even more reluctant to spend her. Thinking for a moment, I remembered a shop that sells delicious and affordable clay pot. Are we going or not? As long as there's food, I'm in. Su Yudie grinned happily. This girl was really not picky about. By the time we arrived at the shop, it was just about 12 o'clock. The place was bustling with noise, full of the lively atmosphere. As soon as Su Yudie walked in, she immediately attracted a lot of attention. I quickly led her to a seat, tucking her away in a corner. We ordered 2 bowls of chicken soup right. The shop owner brought them over quickly. The soup was clear, and the aroma was enticing. Su Yudie couldn't wait and took a sip, only to burn her tongue. Slow down. People might think I starve you. She waved her hand and said between gulps, but this soup is... Su Yudie smiled as she... It seemed like in her eyes, there was no such thing as bad. A girl who isn't picky about food is easy to take. Yuhang, didn't you run away from home? Why are you back again? An unpleasant voice suddenly came from the side. I turned my head and saw Zhuang Yuhang looking at me with a provocative... He was with a few classmates from our neighborhood, also here to eat rice. I didn't want to deal with him, so I ignored him and looked away. Who's that? Su Yudie curiously glanced at Zhuang Yuhang. My dad's son, I replied indifferently. So he's your younger brother? Su Yudie thought for a moment, finally piecing together the relation. Zhuang Yuhang was furious at being ignored. You fought with me at home last time. I haven't even settled that score yet. I coldly responded, "You should be grateful I didn't beat you up. You worthless loser. That day, I don't know what got into you, but you actually dared." Yuhang sneered arrogantly. At home, he was used to seeing me being submissive. Enduring humiliation, he completely disregarded my warning. The kids sitting with Yuhang grinned mischievously, egging him on. "So this is your motherless brother? I heard he's treated like a servant at your house. A bookworm who only knows how to study. How boring must his life be?" Yuhang burst into laughter. "Yeah, even his own mother hasn't visited him in over 10 years. How unbearable must he be?" Hearing those words, I clenched my fists tightly, the joints cracking audibly. Su Yudie suddenly stood up, glaring at Yuhang. "How can you talk like that at such a young age? He's your brother." Yuhang rolled his eyes at Su Yudie. "Who the hell are you, this loser's little sidekick?" Su Yudie's eyes widened, filled with disbelief. How could a kid this young say something so cruel? What kind of parent raise a child to be like this? But he and Zhuangziang shared the same father. Yet Zhuangziang was so kind and gentle. "Your brother treats you so well. Didn't he buy you a cake just the other day?" Su Yudie still tried to reason with Yuhang. "You mean that disgusting cake even a dog wouldn't?" I stomped it to pieces the moment I got it. And then my dad slapped him across the face and kicked him out of the house like a dog. Yuhang let out a smug, unrestrained, "Zhuangziang, you big idiot." Su Yudie looked at me, her beautiful eyes brimming. Only now did she realize what I had gone through that night. And yet the next day, this big idiot actually smiled at her and said, "My little brother really loved the cake. He had cream all over his, and he even called me brother." Even though she had known I was lying at the time, she never imagined the truth would be so cruel. That whole night, how much agony must I have endured? How much disappointment must I have felt? Only then did I resolutely leave home, hiding in that cramped rental apartment, hanging around with this loser. "You don't seem like a decent girl either." Yuhang glanced at Su Yudie with contempt. As soon as he finished, I could no longer hold back. I raised my hand and slapped Yuhang so hard that the crisp sound of the slap startled everyone in the small shop. All eyes immediately turned towards us. "You worthless loser! How dare you!" Yuhang lay on the ground, looking at me with shock in his eyes. I stood over him, looking down coldly. "If I want to hit you, do I need to pick a special day?" That slap of mine landed solidly on Yuhang's face. Has this guy gone crazy? Is he still that same pushover we used to know? Even Su Yudie hadn't expected it. She never thought that someone as gentle as me, the people around us didn't know what had actually happened. To them, it looked like I was bullying a kid. They started pointing fingers, whispering, "How could he hit a child so hard? Call the police. Let the cops teach him a lesson. I'll record a video and post it online. Beating someone in This is outrageous." If this were before, I would have cared about their opinions. I probably would have explained myself. But now, my mindset had completely changed. After all, I was a dying man. Let these strangers say whatever they want. Who cares? My time and energy are limited. I can only spend them on the people I love. The owner of the noodle shop rushed over. He looked at me in surprise. "Why did you hit your brother?" The owner knew me. He also knew a bit about my family situation, so he didn't scold me like the others did. "Uncle, I'm sorry. I've caused you trouble. We'll leave right away." I told Su Yudie to wait for me a moment. Then I followed the owner to pay. Yuhang clumsily got up from the ground, staring at me with eyes full of hatred. But after all, he was only 10 years old. Physically, he was no match for me. He had no choice but to suppress his planning to go home and tattle to our parents later. It took me a while to return. I grabbed Su Yudie's wrist and said, "Let's go." Su Yudie didn't say much. She obediently followed me out. But just as we reached the door, Yuhang shouted, "Zhuangziang, you're in big trouble. My parents won't let you off." I let out a cold laugh. "If they won't discipline you, I'll do it for them. Don't ever let me see you, or I'll beat you every time I do." After saying that, I walked away coolly. This felt way better than being a pushover. "Hey, you big idiot. Why did you hit him?" That was kind of scary, because he didn't just insult me. He disrespected you too. "I won't allow anyone to talk about you," I answered seriously. Only then did Su Yudie recall Yuhang had indeed said that she wasn't a decent girl. That must have triggered me. A hint of sweetness surfaced in her heart. That little brat definitely deserved a beating, but she didn't bring up the unpleasant topic again. We retraced our steps, heading back to the library. About half an hour later, my phone started vibrating. It was a call from my dad. Looks like Yuhang had already I declined the call then I put my phone on Do Not Disturb to cheer me up. Su Yudie found a few joke books And so the whole afternoon, we read 7 or 8 joke books and comics. It felt like binge-eating junk, no nutrition, but full of joy. Being with someone you like, time always flies like running water. But does someone with only 3 months left have the right to love someone? At 5:30 p.m., I returned the books, then left the library with Su Yudie. We walked back towards school. Hey, big idiot, do you remember what we read today? Su Yudie hopped around, stepping on the patterned tiles. Nope, I forgot everything. I answered with a smile. Me too. A trail of cheerful laughter echoed along the road. At 6:10, bus route 19 arrived as expected. Little Butterfly stood on the bus. Through the glass window, I hesitated, waving goodbye before heading back to my rental. Looking at the glass fish tank where 2 small whales swam tirelessly. I fed them, talking to them absent-mindedly. Little fish, do you think Little Butterfly likes me? If she does, blow a bubble. If she doesn't, then solve a quadratic equation for me. I picked up my phone and saw that Zhuang Wenjiao had called 5. He also sent 3 60-second voice. I couldn't be bothered to listen to it. I simply called him back. Yes, I hit him. Because he has a foul, he deserved it. Instead of blaming me, why don't you reflect on yourself? Are you even a qualified father? If I beat him too badly, just take him to the hospital. I don't care. I have no money for you. I wouldn't give you my life. While I was on the phone with Zhuang Wenjiao, I could hear Qin Shulan fanning the flames beside him, cursing and yelling. I sneered internally. I had endured their suffocating presence, and they still thought I was a pushover. After venting my anger, I hung up the phone again, feeling satisfied. On the other side, Zhuang Wenjiao heard the beeping sound from the phone. He was so furious that he nearly exploded. How did I even give birth to Qin Shulan, on the other hand, was sobbing. Look what he did to Yuhang. The swelling hasn't even gone down. Zhuang Yuhang slammed the table. Dad, tomorrow, go to his school and drag him back. Make him kneel and apologize to me. Then whip him with a belt. Zhuang Wenjiao was enraged. Being top of, he even dares to hit his own brother. What's next? Will he dare hit me? The morning sun rose, the air cool and crisp. Monday meant a flag raise. Then came the morning assembly. The school leaders and students summarized last week's academic and campus. As I gathered on the field, my eyes scanned the different. I was trying to find Little Butterfly, but I was disappointed. Little Butterfly, which class are you in? I had actually wanted to ask Su Yudie this question, but considering that she had deliberately kept it a secret, there was probably a reason behind it. I figured that she would tell me when she was ready. The 4th period of the morning was tomorrow was the monthly exam. So there was a lot to prepare for. As soon as the bell rang, Jibota strode onto the podium. He grabbed the blackboard eraser, like it was, and smacked it hard on the desk. As class monitor, I'll be arranging the exam seating. He loved to emphasize the title class monitor, but hardly anyone cared. Jibota tried to push through his speech, but soon he realized no one was listening. Frustrated, he slammed the desk. Are you all even listening to me? He mumbled something under his breath, rambling on and on. He rambled on and on, but not a single important point. Who would even want to listen? Jibota gritted his teeth. You used to listen to all this nonsense. Why won't you listen now? It's simple. When Zhuangxiang was class monitor, when you're class monitor, I don't. The class burst into laughter. Why? Where am I worse than him? He can rank first in the grade. Can you? One sentence, a brutal knockout. Jibota's face turned pale, then red. He had long dreamed of being class monitor, but before he could even settle into he was bombarded with endless trivial. Back when I was class monitor, no one thought much of it. Only now did they realize just how much I had silently contributed. Liu Ruyan turned around. Zhuangxiang, you were a great class monitor. Why did you resign? I lifted my eyes slightly. I'm tired. I don't want to do it. More and more classmates turned their eyes toward me. Zhuangxiang, you're the best choice for class monitor. We all respect you. That's right. You've been class monitor for 2 years. You should see it through. Zhuangxiang, we support you. Are you facing some kind of trouble? If so, tell us. We'll help you. You've always helped us so much. If you're in trouble, don't carry it alone. Under everyone's eager gazes, I slowly stood up. Looking at my familiar classmates' faces, tears welled up in my eyes. Thank you all for your concern. I'm fine, really. Resigning as class monitor was a decision I made after careful I'm truly sorry that I won't be able to serve you. The new class monitor will continue to contribute. Please support and cooperate with him. Also, give him some time. As I spoke towards the end, my voice started to choke up. I'm sorry, my dear classmates. I might not be able to graduate with you all. Yi Tengcheng slammed the desk hard. Zhuangziang! What's wrong with you? Why are you acting all sentimental like a woman? I pressed his shoulder down. Don't ask. You'll find out soon enough. The mood in the classroom turned overwhelmingly heavy. Even though they didn't know what was going on, they could feel my sadness. Jiboda stood at the podium, looking awkward. He had always been competing with me, yet I was still speaking up for him. Maybe that was exactly why. He could never match me in perspective and maturity. He was miles behind. What's going on? Your class is the loudest in the entire... Zhang Jiwan appeared at the classroom door, uttering a classic teacher's phrase. Mr. Zhang, we're having a class meeting, hoping that Zhuangziang will return as class monitor. Liu Ruyan boldly stood up and spoke. As soon as she finished, the whole class echoed in agreement. Mr. Zhang, we don't want Zhuangziang to... In the entire class, he's the most respected. Did something happen in his family? We can all help him. Hearing everyone's overlapping voices, Zhang Jiwan felt a lump. He waved his hand, signaling for silence. Zhuangziang's resignation is a decision he made after careful... We should respect it. Even though he's no longer class monitor, his contributions over the past 2 years, we will never forget. In the days to come, please continue to respect and care for him as before. After saying this, Zhang Jiwan turned and quickly left the class. He wiped away a tear. He barely held it in. He didn't want to cry in front of the whole class. Standing in the hallway, he took a deep breath. Then he turned to me and said, Zhuangzi, there's an old man waiting for you. An old man? Who could it be? I heard he's over 70 years old. You should go check it out. I ran all the way to the school gate. But when I saw the old man squatting outside the guardhouse, tears started streaming down uncontrollably. His sparse hair had turned completely white. His face full of... He wore a blue Zhongshan suit, holding a woven bamboo basket in his hand. Grandpa, why are you here? I rushed forward, throwing my arms around my frail grandfather. I sobbed uncontrollably. Grandpa stood up excitedly. Xiang, I couldn't stop worrying about you, so I had to come see you. My grandfather lived in the country. To come to the city, he had to change buses. He didn't know how to use a phone. He asked around all the way here to find me. When I was 5, my parents divorced. I was sent to the countryside to live with my grandparents. During those short 6 months, those kind elderly people gave me the warmth of family I had never known. Because my grandfather and I formed an unbreakable bond. Later, I was sent back to the city, and Grandpa learned how tough my life at home was. Every summer and winter break, he would take me back to the countryside. For over a decade, most of my living came from the money Grandpa earned farming. He was my true guardian. Grandpa, I'm sorry. I was so immature. I made you worry. I choked out through my sobs. Good, I know you must have suffered at home. Don't be afraid. Grandpa will stand up for you. Grandpa lovingly patted my back. He knew I had a kind and gentle nature. I always treated... For me to act out so drastic, I must have suffered a deep injustice. I had completely lost hope in my father, but he still didn't know about the even greater tragedy awaiting me. I didn't dare to tell him the truth. At that moment, Zhang Xiuan followed. Seeing the grandfather and grandson embrace, he thought about my illness, and his eyes... I wiped my tears away. Grandpa, this is my homeroom teacher, Mr. Zhang. Grandpa quickly bowed to Zhang Jiwan. Teacher, thank you for taking care of Xiang. Zhang Jiwan quickly returned the gesture. Elder, please. Zhuangziang is the best student I have ever taught. I am very proud of him. Then Grandpa took out a few eggs from his bamboo and stuffed them into Zhang Jiwan's hands. Mr. Zhang, we country folks don't have much. These are home-raised eggs. Take them home and try them. No. We have rules that forbid accepting... Zhang Ziyuan quickly refused. Our Xiang has no mother, and his father doesn't take care of... Please help look after him a bit more. Grandpa pleaded. Elder, I will. Zhang Jiwan could no longer hold back. He turned around and wiped his eyes. He couldn't imagine how heartbroken the elder would be if he learned the cruel truth. I waited for my emotions to calm. Mr. Zhang, I'll take my grandpa to lunch. I'll be back in the afternoon. It's okay, go ahead. Zhang Jiwan and Aite watched as I suggested eating out, but Grandpa firmly refused. He was worried about... So I went with him to buy 2 bitter melons. Together with the home-raised egg, I made stir-fried bitter melon and eggs back. I ate with great enjoyment, praising my own cooking skill. Grandpa, I'm living well here. It's close to school. I can sleep a little longer in the morning. Please don't try to persuade me to go back. Grandpa looked around the small but tidy rental room. He sighed. Thinking of you all alone out here. It just doesn't feel right in my heart. I'm not alone. I have many friends at school. Everyone likes me a lot, but friends are ultimately not family. Grandpa sighed and said, Your dad told me you hit you. Is it true? I nodded. He insulted me and my friends first. My expression was, Finish your meal and I'll take you back. We need to clarify this matter. As long as you did nothing wrong, I will stand by you. I hesitated for a moment. Then I agreed. I didn't want my 70-year-old grandpa to worry about such a trivial matter. As for what would happen 3 months later, I could only take it one day at a time. Soon, Grandpa and I appeared at the front door. My dad was extremely surprised. "Dad, why are you here? You should have told me. I would have picked you up," Grandpa said angrily. "You kicked my grandson out of the house, and now I can't even come to see him." Qin Shulan came out to greet, her smile forced and insincere. It wasn't yet time for afternoon classes, so Zhuang Yuhang was also at home. Mother and son both looked at me, with eyes full of resentment. Once the door was closed, my dad roared at me, "Look at what you've done. Your grandpa is so old. What if something happened to him on the way? Can you take responsibility for that? Who gave you the right to yell at my grandson? I'm here to I have every right to be here. An eye for an eye." My dad immediately quieted down. He lowered his head and said, but Grandpa was still furious. He continued questioning, "Did you hit? He's your own son. How could you lay a hand on him? Besides, you shouldn't hit someone in the..." My dad defended himself. "I'm his father. It's my duty to discipline him. Look at yourself, acting all high and mighty. What right do you have to discipline him?" Grandpa was determined to stand up for me, but my dad fell silent again. Dad, you need to be fair. Yuhang is also your grandson." He was slapped by Zhuang Xiang. "What do you have to say about that?" Zhuang Yuhang added, "That's right. This useless loser has been getting arrogant lately." "Shut up. He's your older brother." Grandpa roared in anger. He couldn't understand how these two parents had raised their child to be so disrespectful. How could a younger brother call his older brother a useless loser? No matter what. Yesterday, Zhuangxiang hit Yuhang. That's a fact. He must apologize to Yuhang. You can't just defend him blindly, my dad said to Grandpa. Grandpa frowned deeply. In his words, he always called me Zhuangxiang, but he referred to Zhuang Yuhang simply. That subtle difference was enough to show how stifled. Meanwhile, Qin Shulan continued to fan the flames. If he dares to hit his young, who's to say he won't hit his parents? And then, what's stopping him from hitting Grandpa? With such poor morals, what's the point of studying so? He'll only become a bigger danger to society in the future. Before he makes a bigger mistake, he must be strictly disciplined. Seeing her sharp and mean, Grandpa ignored her. Instead, he turned to me. "Tell Grandpa, why did you hit Yuhang?" I glanced at Zhuang Yuhang. "Because he deserved it. Too arrogant for his own good." "You looking to die?" Zhuang Yuhang shouted. Now that he was completely unrestrained. As for Grandpa in front of him, he only saw him a few times a year. To him, Grandpa was nothing but a scene. "Are you showing a bit of defiance now?" Qin Shulan let out a heavy snort. "A beast like you dares to be this arrogant, even you really don't have any respect for your father." My dad pointed at my nose and cursed. Grandpa snapped angrily. "The situation hasn't even been cleared, and you're all already blaming Xiang." Qin Shulan sneered sarcastically. "If you insist on favoring him, there's nothing I can do about it. My son and I are just unlucky. We're always the ones being bullied." My dad, still somewhat respectful, held back his temper and explained. "Dad, many of the neighbors saw what happened yesterday. Xiang is not focusing on his studies. He's dating some improper girl. And when Yuhang saw them together, Xiang got angry and started a fight. His behavior was simply unacceptable." I glared at him furiously, my voice rising sharply. "Who are you calling an improper girl? What did you say?" "An improper girl?" That was how Zhuang Yuhang described Su Yudie. He didn't expect me to react so strongly. A kid your age should focus on school. But instead, you're messing around. In the future, who knows what kind of disgraceful things you'll do. Qin Shulan kept fanning the flames. I clenched my fists tightly, wishing I could slap this woman across the face. At the same time, I felt terrible for Yudie, who was being insulted. Dad, did you actually look into what happened yesterday?" I questioned him. My dad confidently responded, "Of course. So many people saw it. You slapped Yuhang in public, didn't you?" "No, you didn't look into it." I shook my head bitterly. "Deep down, you've already decided. Zhuang Yuhang is your precious son, and no matter what I do, I'm always..." "Nonsense. I have always treated both of you equally." My dad stubbornly said, "Put your hand on your heart. Do you really believe what you just said?" I gave a cold smile, facing my icy gaze. My dad felt guilty. No matter how he argued, he couldn't hide the fact that he treated his two sons. If you really want to know the truth, then you should know that the noodle shop had surveillance cameras. My tone suddenly became calm. My dad's expression froze. Meanwhile, Zhuang Yuhang's eyes gradually became... I looked at Qin Shulan and said, "Aunt Qin, would you like to enjoy the elegant moment of me hitting your son?" As I spoke, I took out my phone and played a video. Yesterday, when I went to pay. It took me a long time to come back. That was because I asked the owner for this because I know Zhuang Yuhang's character. If I didn't show him solid evidence, he would never admit his mistake. Then from the speaker came Zhuang Yuhang's arrogant and domineering words. Within just 2 minutes, he had called me a coward multiple times. I couldn't hold back anymore and slapped him. Grandfather angrily said, "Good hit." If Xiang didn't react to that, would he still be a man? My dad was speechless. Even though he was biased, he could see that Zhuang Yuhang was provoking me. He was simply asking to be hit. Qin Shulan opened her mouth, but she couldn't find a good excuse, so she remained silent. She was probably thinking how scheming I was, that I even kept the surveillance footage. If we ever fought over the family, and Zhuang Yuhang might not be my match. Zhuang Wenjiao, do you see it clearly now? Which of your 2 sons actually lacks discipline? Grandfather spoke sternly. Dad, I've been busy with work and I didn't get to the bottom of this matter. Yuhang is still just a child. It wasn't intentional. My dad weakly defended him. He called his own brother a coward, and that wasn't intentional. Grandfather was furious. Seeing this, my dad realized that defending Zhuang Yuhang was no longer justified. So he gestured and said, "Yuhang, come over and apologize to Zhuang Zi. Let's put this matter behind us." He hit me. Why should I apologize? Zhuang Yuhang remained defiant. He refused to admit his fault. There's no need. I don't need anyone's apology, I said calmly. What's the use of an apology? It neither feeds me nor clothes me. When words can no longer defend one, fists become the last. In front of my grandfather, I didn't want to argue anymore. I didn't want to stay here. Let's go, Grandpa. Grandfather nodded. All right, let's go. There's no need to come back to this. After saying that, he gave my dad a sharp look. Should I take you back to the village? My dad looked ashamed. No need. If you have too much free time, play fewer card games, and spend more time disciplining your son, Grandpa said. Grandfather and I left together, leaving behind the 3 of them, staring at each other. The atmosphere was unbearably tense. Dad, I just can't stand looking at a coward. Zhuang Yuhang was still indignant. The next second, my dad slapped him hard. Shut up! He is your brother. As we walked out of the house, Grandfather was filled with guilt. Xiang, Grandpa, did I let you suffer too much? I shook my head. Grandpa, I'm fine. Now that I've moved out and live on my own, I smiled, looking at the old man with graying hair. My heart ached. Grandpa and Grandma had worked on saving every penny to support, yet their kindness was so deep that I might never. Grandpa suddenly smiled and asked, Xiang, who was that girl eating with you in the video? Is she really your girlfriend? My face turned red. She is my good friend. Her name is Little Butterfly. Little Butterfly? What a cute name. Grandpa took one look at my and immediately understood what was in. To the older generation, young people dating was something they were actually more open-minded. After all, back in the countryside, it was common for people to get married at 7. I was already an adult. At my age, having feelings for a girl was only natural. Grandpa put aside the earlier unpleasantness and completely shifted the topic. If you like her, you should spend more time with her. When I was young and wanted to court your grandma, her father used to chase me around the village with a stick, but thanks to my thick skin, I still won her heart in the end. I listened quietly, but my heart felt heavy. I only had 3 months left. I no longer had the right to pursue the girl I loved. As we passed by a phone store, I grabbed Grandpa's hand. Grandpa, let me buy you a phone. It'll be easier for us to stay in touch. Grandpa hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. We had tried convincing him to get a phone before, but he was reluctant to pay a monthly phone bill. He always said the landline at home was enough. But after what happened today, he finally changed his mind. Being able to contact me anytime would bring him peace. So we walked into the store and picked out a phone with a big screen, big buttons, and loud volume. The phone, along with a new SIM card, cost just over. Grandpa insisted on paying for it, but I refused and quickly scanned my phone. Even though most of my money came from Grandpa, with the little time I had left, there weren't many chances left for me to show my. Afterward, I sat on a bench outside the phone store, teaching Grandpa how to make phone calls, video chat, and browse TikTok. You used to teach me how to use Chop, how to tie my shoelace. Now you're getting old. I teach you how to use a mobile phone while. In the end, Grandpa was afraid of, so he suggested returning to the. I took him to the bus stop to wait for the bus. You'll be on summer vacation in 3 months, right? Grandpa asked with a cheer. 3 months. Zhuangxiang felt a sudden shock. I am now extremely sensitive to this time, but Grandpa had no idea what I was thinking. He continued, your grandma has been raising. She keeps saying that by the time the chickens will have grown big enough for her to. Hearing this, my eyes welled up with tears. If Grandpa and Grandma were to find out about that little butterfly, if you really like that boy sincerely, you should take the initiative. When summer vacation comes, Bring him to the country. Make your grandma happy. As for me, these old bones, I still want to live long enough to see you get married. Every gentle word from Grandpa felt like a sharp blade piercing my heart. I covered my mouth, desperately suppressing my... Seeing this, Grandpa thought I was just and kindly comforted me. You silly child, what are you crying for? It's not like we won't see. Finally, the bus arrived. Tears streamed down my face, Grandpa. You and Grandma must take care of yourself. Grandpa gave a loving smile. All right, when summer vacation starts in 3 months, come back. After the bus drove off into the... I sat at the bus stop for a long time. My mind was filled with the image of Grandpa and Grandma, crying their hearts out in agony. That would be too cruel. I'm sorry, really sorry. Lost in despair, I dragged myself back towards... As I passed by I suddenly remembered something. I leaned over and spoke to the security guard on duty. Uncle, this morning when my grandpa came, could you find my class? Using my name. Really? Uncle nodded. Yes. The computer system contains information on every... Then can you help me find someone? His name is Su Yudie, I asked. Uncle nodded. He turned around and operated. After a while, 4 large characters appeared on the screen. I immediately widened my eyes in disbelief. How could this be? My mind was full of questions. In the end, I forced a reasonable explanation. He must have 2 names. Just like how Ito Narusa said he was called Imad as a child. Later, he found the name too common and changed it in his... Su Yudie must have been his childhood name. Now he has changed it, right? It must be this. Otherwise, what other reasonable explanation? When I returned to the classroom, the first lesson in the afternoon had already... Where did you run off to again? Ito Naruse whispered. My grandfather came from the country. I answered briefly. Your little butterfly came looking for you, but you weren't here. All the boys in our class are so jealous of you. Hearing this, I immediately took out my phone and typed, what did she want? Why didn't she call? Soon my phone vibrated. A new message arrived from Little Butterfly. Nothing special. Just wanted to see you, I replied instantly. Meet me at the flower bed after class. Little Butterfly quickly replied, okay. As soon as the bell rang, I rushed out of the classroom. The teacher was dumbfounded. I haven't dismissed the class yet. Are you planning to cut my lesson short? By the flower bed filled with hyacinths and wisteria sat the girl who was always pristine and untainted. The peach blossoms by her temples looked like blushing. Su Yudie saw me. She immediately stood up and handed me an ice cream. I became even more puzzled. Classroom 9 is on the 2nd floor, but Su Yudie said her classroom is on the 5th floor. As soon as the bell rang, she came out. Where did she have the time to buy ice cream? You big dummy, hurry up and eat it. It'll melt soon. Little Butterfly, do you have something you're hiding from me? Something you can't tell? Faced with my question, Su Yudie didn't answer directly. She stared into my eyes with her big, beautiful almond-shaped... Be honest. Are you also hiding a secret from me? My heart skipped a beat. I quickly averted my gaze. She was right. There was something so big that I didn't dare tell Little... I had no future anymore. My guilty reaction made Su Yudie burst into laughter. What are you afraid of? It's not like I'm forcing you to tell me. Everyone has secrets. If you don't want to say it, then don't. I lifted my eyes and smiled in relief. She was right. Everyone has secrets. Not everything has to be said out. If he doesn't want to talk, there's no need. When he's ready, he will naturally tell me. Even if the name Su Yudie was fake, the person standing before me was alive, breathing right in front of me. As long as we cherish each other and enjoy the present, I quietly looked at her. The corners of my lips curled up. Most of the time, this girl was always so cheerful and as if she had no worries, yet she was also full of emotion. She would cry her heart out over a stray cat's death. When I was with her, I could momentarily forget the hardships of life. She was like honey, but also like poison. Suddenly, a few boys came over. They sat down by the flower. Zhuangxiang, the exam is coming up soon, and yet you still have time to... Hiding here, eating ice cream with a girl. The one speaking was Duan Haijun, from class 15. He had been the top student in his class for years. The ones with him were all academic elites from different but because of my existence, which defied every time they took an exam, they could only take turns being second. I was like that overly confident teenager in a video, standing at the mountain peak, shouting down, "Good luck, everyone. Fight for second place. Best wishes to you all." In the school's internal exams, they were all holding back, desperate to surpass me and taste what it was like to... But when we represented the school in competition, we were often teammates. Under my leadership, we worked together to bring glory to our relationship was a mix of rivalry and... Haijun, I heard you want to be the top student this year. Zhuangxiang teased. Of course, who among us doesn't want to be the top student? Duan Haijun responded irritably. I thought for a moment, then smiled and said, Why don't I let you have it this time? I'll skip the final exam tomorrow. You'd really give up the exam. Duan Haijin was shocked. I've been feeling lazy lately, and I don't feel like taking. I teased. The top students exchanged glances, their expressions calm. The way you say it, it sounds like you're pitying us. I want to beat you fair and square. Not have you run away before the. Honestly, I've never believed you were unbeatable. Before graduation, I will defeat you at least once. There was a mutual sense of respect among the top students. Actually, I knew. They had all heard rumors that something had happened to that I'd been absent a lot, so they had come to find me on hoping to lift my spirit and have a fair Su Yudie, who had been listening quietly, she suddenly interjected, Zhuang, your grades are that good? I chuckled. Not really. I just look good because of my competition. Duan Haijin and the others looked awkward. Who the hell are you? Ever heard of don't hit a man in the face? Su Yudie patted my shoulder. Why are you skipping the exam? You better take the exam. Wipe the floor with all of them. Who do you think you are, talking so big? Duan Haijin glanced at Su Yudie. As a top student, he was a bit neurotic. In his eyes, girls weren't categorized by even someone as gorgeous as Su Yudie was just a distraction on the path of act. Duan Haijin believed that hanging out with girls was a sign of my down. I used to be quite humble. Every time I placed first, I would say it was just luck and encourage them to keep. But now, things were different. It was time to embrace my true. I looked at Su Yudie. Do you really want me to be first? Su Yudie nodded. Of course. If I get first place, will you promise me something? As long as it's not too outrageous, I'll consider. Hearing this, my gaze sharpened. A smirk appeared at the corner of my mouth. I stood up. I swept my eyes over Duan Haijun and the others. Forgive me for being, but in my eyes, you are all trash. Little Butterfly burst into laughter. Duan Haijun and the others turned red as if they wanted to tear me apart. You're really looking down on us now. If we don't rub your face in the dirt, I won't be satisfied. Where's my 40-meter-long sword? I'm gonna cut him down. Seeing them so fired up, I couldn't help but laugh. I patted Duan Haijin's shoulder. Didn't you say you wanted a fair competition? I won't go easy on you. Duan Haijin punched me lightly. Don't celebrate too soon. I've been burning the midnight oil every. At that moment, the school bell rang. I walked upstairs with Su Yudie. We parted ways at the second floor. You big dummy, do your best. You too. Duan Haijin and the others followed behind. Hearing Su Yudie call me that, there was another moment of silence. If even he's a big dummy, then what are we? The last class of the afternoon ended. Because the exam rooms had to be. School ended a little later than you. I checked the time. It was already past 6. I couldn't help but send a message to Little Butterfly. Did you get on the bus? Little Butterfly quickly replied, see you tomorrow. Since I had nothing to do, I decided to familiarize myself with. Each classroom had 30 seats. The top right corner of the desks had labels with the students. The school arranged seating based on the number of strokes in students' lap. The students in front of and behind me, Zhuang had 6 strokes, while Su had 17. Su Yudie's exam room shouldn't be too far from mine. So I went to check a few classrooms nearby. I quickly found the exam room for students. I carefully checked through the entire list multiple times. There wasn't a single student named Su Yudie. Standing in the exam, I stood there for several minutes. Since meeting Su Yudie, scenes of our interactions replayed in my mind. The number of inconsistencies kept increasing. Little Butterfly, what exactly are you hiding from me? Leaving the school, I went to the snack street. From a distance, I spotted the small stall selling. It was the first thing Su Yudie and I ate together on the day we met. The nickname Little Butterfly also originally came from the potato-selling auntie. Auntie, give me a portion of potato. Extra chili, please. I stepped forward. The auntie was busy, but she smiled and nodded, as if she still remembered. I casually asked, Auntie, how did you come to know Little? The auntie thought for a moment and said, she used to come by often. She was always chattering away about a really adorable girl. She left a deep impression on me. When was the first time you saw her? About 3 months ago. I stopped asking further. I didn't want to ask too much, or the auntie might misunderstand, thinking I was some kind of creepy stalker. Eating my extra spicy fried potatoes, holding an iced cola in one, I suddenly ran into 2 familiar faces, Liu Ruyan and Zhuangxiang. The exam is tomorrow. I'm a bit nervous, so I had Jibota come eat barbecue with me. There's nothing between us. Don't misunderstand. Liu Ruyan spoke first. I looked confused. Eat your food. Why are you explaining to? Liu Ruyan frowned. Look, he doesn't care at all that I'm here with Jibota. I don't mind. It's normal for classmates to eat together. I said, feigning ignorance. Liu Ruyan gritted her teeth in frustration. Her face turned red with anger. Fine, Zheng. Didn't you say you liked me before? Now I'm with another guy. And you're not even the slightest bit jealous. Men are all pigs. None of you are any good. Zhuangxiang want to join us? Jibota asked tentatively. After all, I had defended him in yesterday's class meeting. He didn't want to push me away too hard. Sure, I've got nothing else to do anyway. I agreed without hesitation. Jibota looked speechless. I was just being polite. You really don't consider yourself an out? He wanted to slap himself. Why did he even ask? He had worked so hard to get Liu Ruyan to agree to dinner. Now he had a third wheel and an extra expense. He had brought trouble on himself. We arrived at the barbecue restaurant. It was the same one I had gone to with Su Yudie before. I glanced at the beer display case. Couldn't help but smile. The barbecue is self-service. As soon as Jibota sat down, he started diligently working, brushing oil on the grill, preparing dipping sauces. Liu Ruyan was still the same as ever. As a lofty princess, she only needed to wait and enjoy the food. I couldn't be bothered to move. Like a grand lord, I skewered potatoes with a bamboo stick. Can you stop eating potatoes? Isn't that a waste of my money? Jibota glared at me. Self-service barbecue is charged per person. Filling my stomach with potato was not cost-effective, but I didn't care. I still ate with great enjoyment. Liu Ruyan felt uneasy inside, because last time she came with me, I took great care of her. But now, not long after, I was indifferent to her. It must be because there was a prettier girl by my side. The first plate of food was ready. Jibota naturally started peeling shrimp for Liu Ruyan. I praised him. You're pretty good at peel. Peel two for me too? Can't you do it yourself? Jibota retorted. I'm too lazy to wash my hands. Just be a good person and peel them all at once, I said casually. Jibota was so angry he huffed. You're the good person. Your whole family is good. Liu Ruyan chuckled. Seeing Jibota acting this way in front was quite amusing. Zhuangxiang, the girl who was looking for you outside the class, is she your girlfriend? Liu Ruyan hesitated for a long time before asking that. I shook my head. No. I just met her last week. Hearing this response, Liu Ruyan felt slightly relieved. She then asked, which class is he from? I replied honestly, to be honest, I don't even know. He said he's from class 23. As everyone knows, there are only 22 classes so that must be a lie. That doesn't make sense. If there was such a beautiful girl in our grade, how could no one recognize her? Jibota joined the conversation. Liu Ruyan became very interested. She asked, how beautiful is she exactly? Jibota quickly backed down, saying, of course, compared to you, Ruyan, she is a bit. I had already expected their doubts. Little Butterfly always had a mysterious aura around her. During the meal, Liu Ruyan spent most of the time chatting with. I was very generous, sharing some exam tips with them. As for Jibota, he was busy grilling meat the whole time like a waiter. He barely ate a few pieces. I cast him a sympathetic look. Seeing you reminds me of my past self. Simping never ends well. Liu Ruyan put down her chopsticks. I'm full. You shouldn't eat too much at night. Otherwise, you'll gain weight. I'm about done too, since I already had a portion of. I echoed her words. You're all done eating? I just got started. Jibota panicked. Liu Ruyan kindly said, then stay here and eat a bit more. I'll leave with Zhuangxiang first. I held back a laugh. Jibota, thanks for the treat. I'll head out first. Then the two of us stood up together. Walking side by side out of the bar, Jibota was frozen in his seat. The chicken wing in his mouth suddenly lost. Snowflakes drifted. The north wind howled. The world was covered in death. Ruyan, take a taxi home. I stood by the roadside, trying to hail a cab for Liu Ruyan. Wait, Zhuangxiang. I have something to tell you. Liu Ruyan bit her red lips. I turned my head and quietly looked at the. But in my mind, I was thinking about Little Butterfly. In that instant, I suddenly understood that famous poem. After seeing the vast ocean, after witnessing Mount Wu, Liu Ruyan hesitated for a long time. Then she gathered her courage and said, Zhuang, I've reflected over the past few days. I realize I haven't treated you well enough before, but now I've figured it out. I can still give you a chance. A chance for what? I smiled faintly. As long as you show me your sincerity, you have a chance to win me over within 3 months. Liu Ruyan declared boldly. To her, a girl saying something like this was already a huge concession. I should be overjoyed, grateful beyond words to receive such a gift. But unexpectedly, my expression remained calm. Liu Ruyan smiled. She looked extremely disappointed. Ruyan, I don't think I can. Liu Ruyan didn't understand my meaning. You can't even wait 3 months. Then how am I supposed to know if you're really sincere? I sighed. You misunderstood. I think the girl I like now is no longer you. Hearing my response, Liu Ruyan froze for a long. I only turned you down temporarily. I never outright rejected you. What gives you the right to move on? Zhuangxiang. So all those times you said you liked me were lies? Liu Ruyan was getting emotional. Ruyan, I did like you before. But liking someone without a response, I should have the right to take it back. I answered calmly. Why don't you have patience? Why give up halfway? Liu Ruyan questioned. She always thought that once a guy liked her, he should wait for her forever. Never leaving, she had never considered that guys also had the right to walk away. I looked at the school beauty I had admired for so long. I decided to be completely honest with my feeling. Ruyan, I just realized now that what I felt for you before was only a shallow kind of liking, because you were the school beauty, the center of attention. Winning you over would have satisfied my vanity. But after meeting her, I finally understood what it truly feels like to love someone. Being with Little Butterfly is a wonderful feeling I've never experienced before. I can forget sadness, forget time, forget the whole world. As if in this vast universe, it's just the two of us. Tears welled up in Liu Ruyan's eyes. That's impossible. We've known each other for 2 years. You only met her last week. True love isn't measured by time. You don't even know which class she's from. Aren't you afraid she's lying? Liu Ruyan shouted. If she is, then so. Just like a moth. Even knowing it will burn in the fire, it still dives in without hesitation. I thought to myself, for someone whose life is nearing its end, what is there to lie about? In these final days, I don't care about anything. I just want to follow my true feelings. To live the rest of my short life. I reached out and stopped a taxi. Like a gentleman, I opened the door for Liu Ruyan. Ruyan, when you meet someone like that, maybe then you'll understand how I feel. Sitting in the taxi, Liu Ruyan sobbed uncontrollably. She finally realized she had lost Zhuangxiang forever. Is that girl really that great? Back at my rented apartment, I changed the water and then fed them some fish food. In about 2 months, I'd have to return these 2 fish to Little Butterfly. Just then, my phone rang. It was my attending physician, Dr. Chen Dexiu. There wasn't anything special. He was just calling to check on my condition. Dr. Chen, is there really no solution left? I'm sorry, Xiaozhuang. I understand. Thank you, doctor. Dr. Chen didn't know how to comfort me. He just told me to visit the hospital for another checkup, even though we both knew it was pointless. After hanging up, I tore open the medicine, swallowing a handful of bitter pills, washing them down with water. The bitterness rose in my throat, making me gag. Lately, I don't want to die as much. Even one more day, one more glance at him would be enough. The next morning, my phone rang loudly on the... I stretched my hand out from under the blanket, fumbling to answer. I put it on speaker. Still groggy, I mumbled, "Hello? Who's calling this early?" A sweet female voice came through the speaker. "You lazy pig, the sun is already up. And you're still sleeping?" My eyes snapped open as I sat up in bed. It was the first time Su Yudie had ever called me. "Little Butterfly, where are you?" "I'm out buying breakfast. I'll come find you later." "What do you want to eat?" "If Little Butterfly buys it, anything is fine." I quickly hung up the phone. I hurriedly got up and tidied up my messy room. Then I rushed into the bath. The warm water cascaded over my skin, washing away the fatigue of the... Last night in my dream, I had done unspeakable things with Little Butter. I got dressed. Just then, there was a knock at the... I opened it and saw the face I had been longing for. "Good morning, Little Butterfly." "You big dummy, the sun is already so high up. And you still call this morning?" Su Yudie bought and some tea eggs. As I lowered my head to drink the... She was peeling the egg. After peeling, then she picked up another. I felt a little embarrassed. "I can do it myself." Su Yudie smiled. "Eat it to boost your brain power. Do your best in the exam today. Crush all those guys from yesterday. Don't brag if you can't make it happen. Don't worry. They're nothing more than weak chickens to me." I boasted confidently. Such shameless bragging. Su Yudie rolled her eyes at me. "I've been ranked first in the grade for 2 years. Haven't you heard of me?" I was a little surprised. "Really? I think I've heard something." Su Yudie casually brushed it off. I grumbled and took a bite of... "Clearly, you're a bad student. You don't even care about rankings." Suddenly, I remembered something from yesterday when I checked the exam. There was no name Su Yudie among the candidates with the surname. I hesitated a few times but never asked. If she had something to hide, pressuring her would only make things difficult. After finishing breakfast, Su Yudie took a red string from her pocket. She tied it around my wrist. I frowned. "What's this? Isn't it a bit girly for a guy to wear this?" Su Yudie said, "I heard from someone that wearing this during exams brings superstition. I've never worn one and still ranked for..." I grumbled. "If you don't like it, just take it off and throw it away. Then I'll just keep it on." I lifted my wrist to look at it. The red string was bright, with a faint scent of peach blossom. "All right, I hope the exam god blesses me." The two of us walked to school together. The campus path was covered with fallen petals. The peach blossoms were about to wither. Standing outside the exam hall, I asked, "Little Butt, which classroom are you taking the..." Su Yudie smiled and said, "I'm not taking the exam." Not taking the exam feels a bit bold. Su Yudie took out the leave slip from her bag again. She waved it at me. The homeroom teacher's signature on it looked like scribbles. I couldn't recognize a single. I wanted to ask more questions, but the exam bell had already rung. Do well on the exam. I'll buy you a Coke when you're done. Su Yudie pushed me into the classroom. I sat at my seat, smelling the faint peach blossom scent. I was utterly confused. Which homeroom teacher would sign so many leave slips for and even allow them to skip the monthly? Butterfly, are you taking the same subject as me? Is the first exam Chinese? I was still lost in thought. The test papers had already been I quickly scanned through it, confirmed there were no printing errors, and but just as I wrote the first stroke, I suddenly, this might be my last time taking an exam. Always following the rules is just too boring. Why not let myself go this time? In the name field, I wrote down Su Yudie. For grade, I put class 23. I didn't know the student, so I had to write my own. The Chinese exam wasn't difficult. It just required a lot of writing. My hand was getting. When I got to the classical poetry, the longing heart of Emperor Wang entrusts. What was the previous line? I looked up and out the window. From this angle, I could see the basketball court. The wind blew past the ginkgo, sending a few green leaves fluttering like dance. The beauty of our first meeting. After a long moment, I refocused and neatly wrote the answer on my test paper. Zhuangzhou dreams of becoming. The entire exam hall was silent, so I handed in my paper in less than an hour. I decisively grabbed my test paper and submitted it to the invigilator. Then I walked out of the exam hall. The invigilator glanced at the name on the paper and frowned slightly. He muttered, I wonder what this kid's parents were giving a boy such a name. I took out my phone and dialed Su Yudie's number. Little butterfly, where are you? I handed in my paper early. Wait for me by the flower. I put down my phone and walked toward the flower bed, filled with hyacinths and wisteria. This place had already become our usual meeting spot. I sat by the flower bed. Suddenly everything went dark. A pair of warm hands covered my eyes. Then a playful voice whispered in my ear, guess who I am? Come on, you're not a kid. I pulled Su Yudie's hands away. Not funny at all. You didn't even play along. Su Yudie pooted. She pulled out a can of Coke she had bought and handed it to me. May you achieve victory and win first place. Su Yudie stood up and shouted, you promised me if you ranked first, you'd do something for me. I raised an eyebrow. Su Yudie dramatically crossed her arms over her chest. But let me tell you, no funny business. I laughed, please, as if I'd be interested in you. You big idiot. You're asking for it. No, stop. I was wrong. You're spilling the Coke. In the end, we had lunch in the cafeteria. Then it was time for the lunch break. Little butterfly, I'm going back to take a nap. Do you want to join me? I asked nervously. What about your best buddy? Su Yudie suddenly remembered something. What best buddy? I'm not actually that close to him. I immediately replied. Anyway, Yi Tengcheng won't hear me say this. It should be fine. Prioritizing romance over friendship. Su Yudie pursed her lips and chuckled. She agreed to take a nap together. Little butterfly, I noticed that you always seem to be alone. Don't you have any friends? As we walked along I finally voiced my curiosity. Aren't you my friend? Su Yudie countered. Besides me? Then maybe no one likes me. Su Yudie shook her head. I didn't believe that at all. Such a pretty and adorable girl. How could no one like her? If she really wanted to make friends, probably the entire boys would have to line up. Suddenly, Su Yudie stopped in her track. She tilted her head and stared straight into my eye. Then do you like me? My heart skipped a beat. Then it started pounding wildly. My face flushed involuntarily. I hesitated for a long. Finally, I mustered the courage to say, I like you. Su Yudie's face instantly lit up with a bright smile. Me too. What? My heart raced even faster. You like me too? Are we confessing to each other right now? I meant I really like myself too. Su Yudie's eyes curved into crescent moon. The heart that had just been soaring up and suddenly flatlined. Got excited for nothing. That's not fair. As we reached the apartment building, we ran into Grandma Liu, the landlady. She greeted Su Yudie warmly. Little butterfly. Here to visit Xiaozhuang again? Su Yudie greeted politely. Hello, Grandma Liu. We're just here for a nap. It's broad daylight. Keep it down a bit. Don't disturb the neighbors. Grandma Liu lowered her voice. It's not what you're thinking. My face turned bright red. Su Yudie looked up at the sky, pretending not to understand, but her crystal-clear earlobes slowly turned red. So adorable. Grandma Liu, as someone experienced, could obviously tell something was going on but she was afraid we would be so she stopped teasing and left directly. After entering I told Su Yudie to sleep on the bed while I took but Su Yudie immediately sat up, saying she wanted to chat with me. An idea came to my mind. I laid a mat beside the bed and made a floor bed. That way, We could sleep in the same and chat together. Su Yudie took off her shoes and climbed on. She glanced at the hard floor bed below and blinked her beautiful almond shape. It's so hard down there. Do you want to come up? That sentence was way too ambiguous. I froze for several seconds. My eyes widened, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. Only then did Su Yudie realize. Blushing, she said, I meant your floor bed. It's too hard. I cleared my throat twice. I know it's fine. In the small bedroom, the atmosphere suddenly became off. Both a young boy and girl with their remaining silent for a long time, even though we had planned to chat together. Now neither of us knew how to start. I don't know how long passed. Before Su Yudie finally spoke slowly, Zhuang's, I have something going on, so I might not be able to come to school. What's going on? I was a little surprised. Anyway, I'll be delayed for a few days. Su Yudie was hesitant and unwilling to say, what about the weekend? Won't you come hang out with me either? I felt a little uneasy. On the weekend, can you help me feed the stray? Tell them I'll visit next time. Can I call or text you? I asked cautiously. My voice carried a slight tremor. Calling might not be possible, but if you text me, I will definitely reply when I see it. Su Yudie's eyes were also tinged with sorrow, and my eyes turned slightly red. I struggled to hold back my sadness. Su Yudie lowered her arm. She held my hand and said, it's just a few days. When I come back, I'll come to you first. I held that delicate, boneless hand tightly, greedily savoring this fleeting warmth. In my heart, I almost called her little fool. Do you know? Not just a few days, even a single second. As long as I'm with you, it's infinitely precious to me. I don't have much time left. Thinking of the pile of leave slips in her bag, a strong sense of unease spread within me. You have to come back quickly. This afternoon nap was doomed to be sleepless. Our hands remained tightly clasped. Neither of us let go. Little Butterfly remained optimistic. She chirped on about some nonsensical jokes. And I listened quietly, cooperating with a laugh. Unknowingly, tears slipped from the corners of my eyes, silently falling onto the pillow. Luckily, from this angle, she couldn't see. Being with the one you love, time always flies too fast. Before the afternoon exam, Su Yudie and I parted by the flower bed. You big fool, do well on the test. Get first place. And don't make me do anything too excessive. I will. You have to come back soon. I can't bear to part. Wait for me. By the time I return, the peach blossoms should have withered, Su Yudie said with some sadness. Yet the peach blossom remained vibrant. It never seemed to wither. Then I will never see it again. Hurry up, don't be late. Su Yudie urged me. I nodded suddenly, slowly turning around. Suddenly a warm body leaned against me, pressing tightly against my back. A pair of jade-like arms wrapped around my little butterfly. Don't say any. Just let me hug you for a moment. For a moment, the wind seemed to stop. All I could hear was my own pounding, nothing else. How I wished time could freeze at this moment. Love is 1/10. I'd rather be buried right here. The exam bell rang. The time to part had come. Su Yudie let go of my hand. You big fool. Don't look back. Just keep walking forward. I resisted the urge to turn back, stepping forward. As I climbed the stairs to the second floor, I looked back at the flower bed. She was already gone. Only pink and white hyacinths swayed in the wind. The afternoon exam was math. Inside the sealed area, I still wrote Su Yudie. Class 23, as always, handed in their papers, and as I walked down the stairs after the exam, I greeted him. Haijun. This time you might really get first place. Deng Haijun laughed and asked, why do you... Was the math test hard? How could it be? This time the questions were way too easy. It's just, I forgot to write my... Deng Haijun was stunned, his eyes filled with doubt. The top student of our grade could be this careless? Besides, you even finished early. And you still forgot to write your name? Haijun, walk with me for a bit. You acting all weird today? Two grown men strolling around camp. Isn't that a bit embarrassing? Though Deng Haijun, he still agreed to... Walking along the road, I gazed into the distance and said faintly, Haijun, after this monthly exam, I won't be taking any more exams. From now on, you'll probably be the top student. Deng Haijun was startled. What do you mean? Are you transferring? Something like that. Soon I won't be at school anymore. Are you crazy? We're about to graduate. Why transfer now? Deng Haijun raised his voice. If I leave, you'll be number one. Why do you sound like you don't want me to go? I teased him. You'd better be serious. Don't joke with me. Deng Haijun's expression dark. Of course I'm serious. For us competition students, precision and seriousness. I put away my playful expression and became solemn. We had participated in numerous competitions together. We were comrades who fought side by side, sharing victories and honors, and tasting the bitterness of failure together. It was only right to say a proper Zhuangziang, you bastard! Running away at the last moment Well, I wanted to beat you, but I wanted to win fair and square. Not because you handed it to me. If it weren't for wanting to surpass, I wouldn't be where I am today. And now you're leaving. What is that even? Deng Haijun suddenly erupted, catching Zhuang Xiang completely off. I never expected that the guy who always saw me as a would actually be this unwilling. Haijun, you'll meet even stronger opponents in the future. But don't ever forget about me, your former stumbling block. Zhuang Xiang, do you really have to leave? Deng Haijun asked in a deep, I have no choice. I smiled faintly. This wasn't something I could control. Deng Haijun had mixed feelings toward me. But in the end, he still felt the loss of a worthy rival, a deep sense of regret. The two sat at the bus stop, watching the traffic in front of them, talking for a long. From their first confrontation to their first collaboration in a the past replayed scene by scene. It was truly moving. Just like that, youth quietly slipped away in tears and sweat. Suddenly, the number 19 bus turned the corner. I picked up my phone to check the time. Exactly 6:10, but Little Butterfly was nowhere to be seen. Haijun, do you know where the number 19 bus goes? Xiaoyao Palace. Isn't it written right there? Deng Haijun pointed at the sign. If you're free, how about keeping me company on the bus ride? The fare's on. I laughed. A whole 2 yuan for the ride. You sure are generous. Deng Haijun mocked. I frowned. Yeah, a single bus ride only costs 2 yuan. But Little Butterfly always saved 4 yuan to go home. That means she transfers buses once. Finding out where she lives, that won't be easy. The two got on the bus. I don't have a seat anymore. I can only hold on to the hand. Uncle, there's a girl who often takes this bus. She wears a white shirt and a blue. She has a peach blossom in her hair. Do you know which stop she gets off at? Such a beautiful little butterfly. She would stand out wherever she goes. I think the driver would probably remember her. However, the bus driver waved his hand and said I can't disclose passenger privacy. That one sentence shut me down. I could only give him a thumbs up in admiration. Such professionalism. After all this time, you just brought me here to chase a girl? Deng Haijun frowned in discontent. It's the girl you saw yesterday. I'm a little worried about her. I explained to Zhuang Xiang. Listen to me. A wise man does not fall in. You are on the wrong path now. Deng Haijun said expressionlessly. You guy? Do you really have no interest in girls at all? I asked in confusion. Women will only slow down my blade. Deng Haijun pushed up his glasses that didn't exist on his face. To him, I was clearly lost. A truly outstanding scholar should not be troubled by romantic affairs. Look at Newton, Leibniz, and the viewers in front of the screen. Which one of them has a wife? We swayed along on the bus. Not knowing where to get off midway, we simply rode to the last stop, Xiaoyao Palace. It's the most famous Taoist temple in the flourishing with incense offerings all year round. The word Xiaoyao represents a rare state of freedom in life. Deng Haijun and I entered the mountain gate. We wandered around at will. The thick scent of sandalwood filled our minds grew peaceful. In the northern seas, its name is Kun. The size of Kun is unknown, spanning thousands, but Haijun couldn't help reciting Xiaoyao Yu. Haijun, do you know what sound Kun makes? I laughed and asked cluck cluck cluck. Deng Haijun asked tentatively, even using both hands to mimic flapping wings. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. So this usually serious scholar actually has a sense of young people, please keep your voices down in the temple. A voice came from behind. I quickly stopped laughing. I turned towards the voice. It was a Taoist priest in a robe. Sorry, master. The priest stood beside a rack filled with fortune sticks. Behind him, a wall displayed various fortunes. It was obvious that he was there to interpret fortunes for visitors. Haijun, do you want to ask about your love life? I teased. No need, my fate is determined by me, not. Deng Haijun didn't believe in such things. To be honest, neither did I. After all, we were both firm believers in scientific reason. Fortune-telling and divination were merely psychological comfort. But suddenly, the priest's gaze fixed on the red string on. This is from our temple. I raised my wrist. A faint scent of peach blossoms lingered. Really? A girl gave this to me. It will bless you with safety, the priest said. I felt a surge of so the little butterfly had been. Maybe her home was nearby? Then I'll draw a fortune stick, I said respectfully. Bored, Deng Haijun curled his lips. We walked to the front. I shook the fortune canister for over 20 seconds, until a stick. I picked it up. My pupils contracted suddenly. A bad omen. I handed the stick to the priest. The priest quickly found the corresponding fortune. It was a short poem. Green porcelain hold a single step away, a hidden fate concealed. Zhuangzhou dreams of but without freedom, the house room. As expected, a bad omen. Even the words within the poem carried no good signs. Young man, what do you wish to ask? The priest's face grew solemn. I was caught off guard. Even I didn't know what to ask. After all, life is fleeting. Everything eventually turns to nothing. After a long pause, I finally answered, I'm looking for someone. Can you tell me where they have gone? The priest furrowed his brows. Do not look for them. They will return on. But what? I hurriedly asked. Desires and worries. A forced pursuit is not as good as opportunities come. With a cryptic look, the priest spoke in riddles. Then came a flood of words, a long-winded explanation that seemed profound. Yet it felt like nothing at all. I was utterly confused. In the end, I obediently handed over a 10 yuan don. The priest accepted it with a cheerful. Then he pointed toward the gate. Over there, an old lady is selling snacks. She is all alone, with no family or support. If you're hungry, you can buy something from her. So I got scammed out of 10 yuan. As we walked away, Deng Haijun finally started mocking. I chuckled. It's fine. Consider it a donation to the temple. Though a cloud of doubt still lingered in my heart, the little butterfly had said she would only be gone for a few days. She would be back next week. Everything should be fine. We walked out of the temple gate. Sure enough, we saw an elderly woman selling snacks. Her hair was streaked, her face full of wrinkles. Before her was a small stand. She was selling tofu pudding. Haijun, you've walked around with me for so long. Let me treat you to a bowl of tofu. At least you have some conscience. Deng Haijun gladly accepted. The two of us stepped up to the stall. I greeted the old lady, Grandma. 2 bowls of tofu pudding. The old lady quickly stood up. She looked up at me. Her gaze was cloudy and dim. I have a soft heart. Seeing an elderly woman alone like this made my eyes water. However, there was something familiar about her face. Young man, do you want it sweet or savory? Her voice was hoarse. I want it sweet. Add more sugar. Deng Haijun immediately protested. You're such a who eats tofu pudding sweet. I want mine savory. I shot him a disdainful look. Tofu pudding, the battle between sweet and savory, will never be resolved. As we watched the old lady prepare, Deng Haijun suddenly blurted out, It's getting dark. Why are you still out here working? Isn't your family worried about? I frowned. The priest had just said that she had no family. Wasn't he just rubbing salt in the wound? Sure enough, the old lady's expression turned sorrowful. I have no family. I'm sorry, Grandma. He doesn't mean to be rude. I placed a 10 yuan bill on her stall. The tofu pudding was 5 yuan. After deducting the cost, she barely made any. If it weren't out of necessity, who at her age would still be out in the cold at night? Thank you. The old lady carefully put the money away. It was delicious. Goodbye, Grandma. I nodded with a smile. The old lady's gaze lingered on the red string on my wrist for a moment. Her already murky eyes grew even darker. Haijun, you really have no filter. Why bring up something so painful? As we walked away, I complained about Deng Haijun's tactlessness. Deng Haijun was so suspiciously cunning that I wondered, deliberately making up stories. But it seems like you're so oblivious to social norms. You'll probably end up lonely for life. I'm not that cynical. Immersed in the ocean of mathematics and physics, I'll never feel lonely. Deng Haijun laughed heartily. He pushed the wolf toward Zhuangziang. So sweet. Want to try some? I scoffed. Sweet tofu pudding? Even dogs wouldn't eat it. Take it away. Looking back at the old man selling at his lonely stall in the night, I felt an overwhelming sadness, thinking back to the fortune teller's strange words. I grew increasingly restless for no reason at all. Why did I even bother drawing a fortune? Truly, the world has no troubles. Only fools create. Deng Haijun took a taxi home. Before parting ways, he said confidently to Zhuangziang, if you keep indulging in romance, even if you don't back out, you'll soon be no match for me. I smirked. As long as I'm in school, you can never be number 1. Good, you're a worthy rival. If you want to surpass me, try for another 100 years. After exchanging bold, they each went home. Back in my rented room, I lay in bed, tossing and turning. I picked up my phone and typed a message to Little Butterfly. I had a really delicious bowl of tofu pudding today. Next time, shall we go together? I hesitated for a long time before finally sending it. Then I regretted it immediately. What a terrible excuse for an invitation. As always, there was no reply. The next day, I woke up from my and immediately grabbed my phone, only to be disappointed again. Little Butterfly still hadn't. She never used to be like this. He said that as long as he saw it, he would definitely reply. That means he just hasn't seen it yet. Morning and afternoon exams. Zhuangziang still handled them effortlessly. The name on the sealed envelope was still Su Yudie. I thought to myself, if I used Little Butterflies to become the top scorer of I should be able to find his class. In such a big campus, someone must know him. After the exams ended, classes resumed as normal for the next. During those 2 days, I reread that message hundreds of times. Yet, I still didn't receive a reply from Little. It was as if he had vanished into suddenly removed from my world. On Friday morning during math class, I suddenly had a nosebleed again. Large drops of blood fell, staining the pages of my math book red. Yi Tengcheng was shocked. He quickly helped me to the bathroom and insisted on taking me to— Son, what's wrong with you? Don't scare your dad. I forced out a weak smile. It's nothing. The food was too good these days. I got overheated. Yi Tengcheng lightly punched me in the chest. We're father and son. Don't bottle things up. No matter how big the problem, I'll face— Am I gonna die from losing so much blood? I continued joking. Then just hurry up and die. I'll be the old man burying his own— Do you want a coffin with a flip lid or a— Yi Tengcheng laughed too, but he never expected that the truth is often spoken in jest. By the way, where's your little butterfly? Haven't seen him lately. Yi Tengcheng suddenly realized it had been days since he last saw that beautiful— She had something to do, so she took leave. I replied gloomily, Wow, you two are a perfect match. Both taking leave every other day. Yi Tengcheng teased. I stuffed tissue into my nostril. Finally stopped the bleeding. There were still 20 minutes left until the dreaded math class of the extinction finally managed to escape. Didn't want to go back too early. Yi Tengcheng raised an eyebrow. How about a game, he suggested. Fine, but no playing zhuangzhou. Yi Tengcheng had just said it casually, thinking I would definitely refuse, then obediently go back to class. But to his surprise, I, the model student with strong morals, had fallen this far. The two of us logged into the game, started a duo queue. Time is such a strange thing. A 45-minute math class felt excruciatingly long, but this same amount of time was barely enough for 2 ranked matches. The 2 teenagers hid in a corner of the bathroom, playing games. I played terribly and got completely wrecked by Yi Tengcheng. Why is your butterfly flying? Or you misused your first skill. I was taking the red. Why did you come over? Your second skill stole my ult automatically. I got sniped by the end. Hurry up and use your— I stared at the screen intensely, focusing on my move. Zhuangzhou, the fish-riding hero, but playing was still fun. Moments to game with Yi Tengcheng were rare. Team fight incoming. Follow my lead. When I say ult, you ult. Yi Tengcheng was tense, as if facing a real— Seeing the enemy Guguzi initiate the fight, he shouted loudly. Just as he finished his word, bang! The bathroom door was suddenly shoved, revealing Zhang Jiuan's furious face. Yi Tengcheng against the wall. You've been hiding in here playing games. Zhang Jiuan snatched my phone away. Playing games during class? Phone confiscated. Go back and write a self-ref. After saying that, he walked off, adjusting his— Weren't we playing together? Why didn't he take your phone too? Yi Tengcheng fumed. I shook my head blankly. On the screen, the unattended Zhuangzhou was quickly killed. His death dialogue appeared. Time to wake up. Early Saturday morning, I bought some sausages and cut them into tiny pieces. Following Little Butterfly's instructions, I went to Shishan Park to feed the stray. As soon as I took out the food, a swarm of colorful kittens quickly surrounded me. I carefully recalled the names Little Butterfly had given them: Whiskers, Cheese, Pudding, and so on. But the kitten named Tom would never appear again. Young man, why didn't that girl come with you today? A kind voice called out from behind me. I turned around. It was the same sanitation. I answered dejectedly, She's been busy lately. I haven't seen her for days either. She's such a kind girl. She's been coming here every weekend for the past 3 months to feed. The lady smiled. 3 months ago, I murmured. I remembered the fried potato vendor, also that he met Little Butterfly 3 months ago. That must have been right before New Year. The sun rose high, illuminating the flowers and trees. The air was especially fresh. I took a deep breath, then left. Today, I had an appointment with Chendex. We were going back to the hospital for another even though I knew it would be pointless. The hospital hall was filled with the strong scent of from the patient room's faint beeping sound. I followed the noise and arrived at Chendexu's office. He looked serious. You're alone again? Where's your guardian? I shook my head. It's already like this. I don't want to trouble anyone. Chendexu sighed deeply. He didn't ask further. Having been a doctor for he had seen all kinds of patients, some with complicated family situations. He spent half a day with me before finally getting do you want to read it yourself, or should I explain it to you? Chendexu's expression was grave. Keep it simple. Explain it in a way I can understand, I pleaded. Let it go. Just 3 words. Simple and easy to understand, but it shattered my compared to last time, I felt even more heartbroken. Because back then, I hadn't met little butterfly. Chen Dexu plucked a peach blossom from the vase on his desk and handed it to me. Here, take a flower. Try to relax. Spend more time with the people you love. The peach blossoms must be. Chen Dexu nodded. Pretty much. This is the last one. There used to be a patient who he used to bring me one often to brighten my mood. What happened to that patient? I asked. He can no longer see the peach blossom. Chen Dexu shook his. As a doctor, he had long become used to life. Thinking about it barely stirred any emotions, but for me, such a simple statement felt too cruel. This was probably the last peach blossom I would ever see in my lifetime. Holding the test results, I walked out of Chen Dexu's office. And in the hallway, I ran into my front row classmate, Liu Ruyan. What a coincidence. Liu Ruyan's grandmother was hospitalized here for some chronic conditions. She came to visit on the weekend, but unexpectedly ran in. She actually seemed a bit happy. What are you doing at the hospital? It's nothing. I had a nosebleed yesterday. I just came to check it out. I gripped the test report in my fingers, not knowing where to hide it. You lost so much blood yesterday. It really scared me. Are you okay? Liu Ruyan suddenly reached and snatched the test report from my hand. Ruyan, don't. I tried to stop her, but it was already too late. The report was full of complex medical terms. Liu Ruyan couldn't understand, but the words cancer cell metastasis jumped out at her like a nightmare. Her hands trembled uncontrollably as she held the tears welled up in her eyes. Zhuangziang, this isn't real, right? You're joking, right? This isn't funny at all. I treated you badly before, but I know I was wrong now. Don't joke with me about something like. At that moment, she cried like a child, desperately questioning me if I was faking it. For what reason? I never even expected to run into her here. So why would I prepare something like this as a joke? Ruyan, promise me you won't tell anyone. I calmly requested. Why is this happening? You're only 18. Liu Ruyan's tears wouldn't stop flowing. When my mom was pregnant with me, she thought of aborting me several. So by that count, I got an extra 18 years. I laughed bitterly. Don't laugh. I told you this isn't funny at all. Liu Ruyan cried even harder. Keep your voice down. Don't disturb others. I said helplessly, Zhuangziang, how much time do you have left? 3 months, but another week has passed. Only a little over 2 months. I remembered the calendar I had bought. I had already torn off 10 pages. Counting life in sheets of paper like this didn't feel good at all. Liu Ruyan suddenly remembered I had taken a day off last week. Said it was for a medical. After coming back, he had a drastic wearing a flamboyant, wandering floral shirt. During math class, he was caught reading a novel secretly, got punished, and even skipped. It turns out, at that time, he had already been diagnosed with hallucinations. Yet, I was still sulking at him, just because he didn't throwing a tantrum at him. I'm sorry, Zhuangziang. I didn't know back then. I calmly said, it's okay. You don't need to apologize to me. Liu Ruyan was shedding tears, while recalling all the kindness I had. The more she thought about it, the more she had let down such a gentle boy. Suddenly, she had an epiphany. She stared into my eyes and asked, Zhuang, actually, you still like me, don't you? I was puzzled and asked why she would say that. Because you only distanced yourself from me after you got sick. You said those things just to anger. You even found a prettier girl to pretend to have moved on. Liu Ruyan believed her analysis was spot on. I was momentarily speechless. My dear overthinker, you're really overanalyzing this. Zhuangziang, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry, she kept saying, and Liu Ruyan repeatedly apologized, which made Zhuangziang a bit embarrassed. My overthinker, you have nothing to apologize for. I was just a little too persistent for a little too long. I just woke up a bit late to reality. How about this, Ruyan? If you really feel guilty, treat me to lunch. I'm a little hungry. I smiled, and Liu Ruyan immediately agreed. She insisted on treating me to but I refused. I'd rather have a quick meal outside the hospital. 15 yuan per person, huge portions. Then the two of us headed to the restaurant and sat in a secluded corner. I ate with great appetite, but Liu Ruyan seemed to have lost hers. Finding out that someone close to you has a significant impact on one's spirit. Moreover, these past few days, it has become his feelings for me seem to be more than just treating me as a backup. Ruyan, from now on, don't say any words of apology to me. Otherwise, I'll feel like you are pitying me. In these last days, I want to live with a little dignity. You must keep this a secret for me. If our classmates find out, they will definitely treat me the same way you are now. I took a few bites to fill my stomach, then gave my reminder. Last time, when the whole class showed, even the class monitor almost made me burst into. If this news spreads, I wouldn't know how to face everyone. Liu Ruyan nodded with red, swollen eyes. So you still like me, don't you? Is it really necessary to dwell on this? Would you date someone with less than 3 months? I gave a helpless. Liu Ruyan was momentarily. Her eyes welled up with tears. Yes, that's true. If you know someone won't live past 3 months, who would still date them? The once proud and confident campus belle had now become so humble. But was it just an overflow of sympathy? Sympathy is not love. Seeing Liu Ruyan's conflicted expression, I decided to explain everything clearly, to prevent her from overthinking it. Ruyan, I told you last time. I never really liked you that much. We are just classmates and friends. That girl's name is Little Butterfly. After meeting her, I finally understood what it truly feels like to like someone. But unfortunately, I never got the chance to be with her. I had already made up my mind. No matter how much I liked Little Butterfly, I would never confess to her. With so little time left, this love is only worthy of being buried. Otherwise, if I were to leave suddenly, it would be easy for me. But what about Little Butterfly? How would she? A love that is doomed from the start should never begin. In the end, let's just be friends for the time. After all, he doesn't even remember that Little Butterfly. Is she really that great? Liu Ruyan asked, unwilling to accept it. You are always high above, but she is within reach. That might be the biggest difference between you two. I said bluntly. Being with a girl like Liu Ruyan is exhausting, but being with Little Butterfly makes me forget all my worries. From the look in my eyes, Liu Ruyan saw sincerity and finally let go of her unrealistic fantasy, like the idea that I deliberately found a pretty girl. After thinking for a moment, she asked one last question. If I had agreed to date you earlier, and we were already a couple, what would you do if you met Little Butterfly? Then I would have kept my distance from her. We wouldn't have had the chance to get to know each other. I answered without hesitation. If we had met that day under the ginkgo tree, and I had already been someone's boyfriend, after escaping the school walls, we would have gone our separate ways. There wouldn't be this lingering attachment. So Ruyan, I should really thank you for keeping me hanging. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the chance to meet such a one. To Liu Ruyan, these words felt like a slap in the face. Is that thank you really sincere? After saying this, I bid farewell and left. Liu Ruyan watched my carefree and unrestrained shame, regret, all kinds of emotions surged in her heart. The gentleness of this boy she no longer deserved to have. Back at my rented room, I crumpled the medical report into a ball and casually tossed it. Then I stared blankly at the two whales and the fish, lost in thought. Without Little Butterfly, my life felt empty, and so did my heart. After a while, my gaze fell on the bamboo flute by the fish tank. To pass the time, I picked up the bamboo flute and played it freely. I only remembered this part of the prelude. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't. It felt as if I played it, I would see Little Butterfly. Sleepiness crept in, and I lay down for a nap. Half awake, half asleep, a ding came from my phone. I reached for my phone. The words on the screen instantly made me wide awake. I miss you so much. It was a message from Little Butterfly. I immediately typed a reply, my hands trembling. I miss you too. Where are you? However, the message was sent into the void once again. I felt uneasy, but there was nothing I could do. I called, but all I heard was, the number you dialed. I knew Little Butterfly must be keeping a secret from me. But wasn't I the same? Hiding a huge secret in my heart. A grown man shouldn't shed so many tears. But I just couldn't hold them back. The past decade or so, life had been dark enough. Now finally, a ray of light had come in. But it was already time for the curtain. I thought, Little Butterfly had only been gone, and I was already falling apart. If I were to die, how heartbroken would Little Butterfly be? Sunday. I sat on the grass where Little Butterfly and I used to staring blankly at the river. I sat there all morning. As noon approached, my phone rang. I quickly took out my phone, excited. But the caller ID showed it was my dad. What now? I answered coldly. Come home for lunch. Your aunt made a whole table of delicious food. My dad's voice was unusually gentle. When has there ever been good food? Have you ever thought of me before? You're my son. No matter what, you should be filled. It's been so long. Shouldn't your anger have Are you really never coming home? I raised my voice. Dad, just say it straight. Is it because there's no one to mop the floor or no one to do the laundry? I had no patience for pleasantry, getting straight to the point. Over the years, I had done countless chores in that house. Mopping the floor, wiping windows, washing dishes, doing laundry. I even learned to fix pipes and clean the range hood. I lived like a housemaid. Now that I had been away for over a week, They must have dumped the mess on Chin. She was probably complaining nonstop. My dad hesitated. Then he finally said, "It's like this. Yuhang's teacher told me if his grades keep dropping, he might have to repeat a year. You're good at studying anyway. Come back and tutor him. Why don't you just hire a tutor for him?" I questioned him. Hiring a tutor costs money. My dad blurted out. I let out a cold laugh. In my father's eyes, I had always been nothing more than free labor. If he didn't need something from me, would he even care? Outside, no one even bothers with his precious son. His mind isn't even on studying. No matter who tutors him, it won't make a difference. Why are you saying that? Is Yuhang still mad about what happened last time? He's just a kid. You're not seriously holding a grudge. You're an adult now. Can't you be a little more forgiving? I could barely contain my anger. I hit him with 3 soul-piercing questions. He had the speakerphone on. Qin Shulan's complaining voice drifted through the receiver. Our Yuhang only called you useless, but you still hit him. No matter what, hitting someone, cursing someone we've already let that go. Yet you're still holding a grudge, acting all stubborn and refusing to tutor your brother, not even fulfilling the slightest duty. As I took a deep breath. Then I unloaded everything into the phone. That precious son of yours is no different from a pig in my eyes. Asking me to tutor him? Keep dreaming. No, he's even worse than a pig. At least pigs show gratitude when their owner feeds. He's just an ungrateful wretch. And of course, you two are no better. Wasting air while alive, wasting land when dead. After venting everything, without giving my dad a chance to argue, I decisively hung up. I felt so good that I even ate an extra bowl. Zhuang Wenjiao heard the beeping sound from the phone. His face turned livid with rage. No matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't understand how the once obedient could become so defiant. Qin Shulan furiously shouted, "Look at the animal you raised. He even dares to insult us. Is there no law anymore?" Zhuang Wenjiao slammed his fist onto the coffee table. "I'm going to beat him to death." I sat by the river a little longer. Then Ito Castle called me, asking if I wanted to have lunch at his place. I casually made up an excuse to refuse because I was afraid of seeing his happy family, afraid that it would twist my heart, even the things other kids are born with. I had fought with all my might and in the end, it was nothing but in a way, I should thank my father and stepmother for constantly reminding me how cold the world can be, how shallow human relationships. There's really no need to hold on too much. Monday. The bright red flag slowly rose over the school field. At the morning assembly, the school leaders summarized last week's monthly. They couldn't help but ramble on a bit. I had some trouble sleeping standing in the queue. All I did was. Meanwhile, Liu Ruyan's gaze remained fixed on me, not looking away for even a second. She was afraid I might suddenly collapse, never to wake up again. When it was time for the student council members to. Our class once again missed out on the road. Immediately, complaints. I told you. Jiboda is completely useless. Under his so-called leadership, our class's discipline and hygiene last week were both a total mess. Without comparison, there is no harm. Now I finally understand just how outstanding Zhuang Xiang was. Hearing these words, Jiboda felt as if knives were. He had clearly given his best effort, yet he was still only good enough to serve as Zhuang. Now he finally admitted it. Compared to Zhuang Xiang, there was indeed a huge gap. By the 4th period class meeting, Jiboda inevitably faced yet another wave of criticism. Standing at the podium, he struggled to explain and defend himself, but his words felt weak, and in the end, he completely lost his temper. He threw the blackboard eraser. "Fine, then I quit. Whoever wants to be class monitor can take it." This was originally meant as a strategic retreat. He thought the class would ask him to stay. Unexpectedly, the majority of students turned their hopeful gazes toward, full of expectation. I reluctantly stood up. Our class not winning the rotating red flag is a responsibility shared by. You can't blame Jiboda alone. Don't be too harsh on him. In reality, I knew the true reason. Jiboda simply lacked authority. He couldn't command. So many people deliberately opposed him. That was why our class performance suffered across all areas. I turned to Jiboda. Since you've taken on the role of class, don't give up so easily. Put your heart into leading the class. Let everyone feel your sincerity. Then they will surely support you. Easier said than done. Then why did you quit? Jiboda immediately retorted. I had my own reasons. I let out a helpless sigh. Stop putting on an act. And don't act all superior with me. Jiboda was still unwilling to back down. And Liu Ruyan suddenly I won't allow you to talk to Zhuang Xiang in that tone. Jiboda was instantly dumbfounded. Our class beauty, why was she suddenly defending me? Zhuang Xiang has done so much for us. What right do you have to question him? Liu Ruyan glared hatefully at the other classmates, also looked puzzled. Whispers spread through the classroom. Liu Ruyan was never like when I chased her. She was always indifferent. But now she suddenly changed her mind. As expected, a woman's heart. Zhang Wuji's mother was right. The prettier a woman is, the better she. I quickly gestured to Liu Ruyan. Please don't act impulsively. Don't reveal that matter. At that moment, Zhang breaking the awkward silence in the class. Zhuangxiang, come with me. The rest of you continue the class meeting. Yi Tengcheng asked curiously, Mr. Zhang, why do you keep calling for Zhuangxiang lately? Zhang Zhiyuan sternly replied, why don't you worry about yourself? Where's the self-reflection essay you were supposed to submit? Yi Tengcheng immediately shut up. His phone had been confiscated, making his entire weekend feel dull. And on the way to the office, Zhang Zhiyuan asked me, I saw Liu Ruyan on the verge of tears. Did you tell her? We ran into each other at the hospital. She happened to see the test report. What did the doctor say? Try to stay positive. After that conversation, there was a long silence. Zhang Zhiyuan didn't know how to come. He just kept his head down. I shoved my hands into my pocket, strolling into the office with a completely indifferent. A few other teachers were also present. Zhang Zhiyuan sat down in his chair. Out of habit, he took a sip of his goji berry tea. He glanced at me. Do you know why I called you here? I thought for a moment. The monthly exam papers are. Zhang Zhiyuan slammed his hand on. What kind of nonsense are you pulling? Who the hell is Su Yudie from class 20? I made a mistake and wrote the wrong name. Do you believe me? I shrugged. Zhang Zhiyuan wanted to explode, but considering my health, he forcibly held himself back. As the top student for 2 consecutive years, my exam papers were always closely monitored but this time, after grading was completed, when they removed the seal, they couldn't immediately find my exam paper. However, it didn't take long. The teachers quickly spotted my paper. Aside from the name and class, the student ID, the handwriting, and the scores all confirmed it was undeniably mine. This little joke of mine ended up causing quite a hassle for the school. The head teacher even called a special staff meeting. The main topic of discussion: should Zhuangxiang's test results be considered? The supporting argument: Zhuangxiang was just playing a harmless joke. He still answered the questions serious. His total score was still the highest, so the results should. The opposing argument: allowing this would encourage a disregard for rules. If he couldn't even write his name correct, then no matter how high his score was, a strict punishment was necessary. His results should be void. The debate was heated. After arguing for a long time, there was still. So Zhang Zhiyuan called me over, wanting to hear my explanation first. However, with my carefree attitude, it was obvious I had no remorse whatsoever. Mr. Zhang, can you tell me, is this Su Yudie student at the bottom of the grade? Zhuangxiang asked with, you're lucky. Deng Haijin only scored 2 points less. Zhang Zhiyuan rolled his eyes at me. All right, I'm a practical person. I don't care about empty titles, just void my results. I said nonchalantly, as long as I know I got first place, now I can make a request to Little Butter. As for rankings on the report card, they don't matter. Deng Haijin has been dreaming about that top spot. Let him have it this time. Zhang Zhiyuan sighed, then switched to a gentler tone. Fine, I'll explain to the head teacher. You've been under too much pressure all these years. If you just wanted to relax a little, I can understand. But don't go too far. Then return Yi Tengcheng's phone to him. I promise I won't cause trouble again. Take it, that thing's expensive. If I lose it, I can't afford to compensate. Zhang Zhiyuan pulled open a drawer and tossed the phone onto the desk. Thanks, Mr. Zhang. Wishing you a long life. Zhuangxiang grinned as he picked up the phone. Hearing those words, wishing you a long life, Zhang Zhiyuan felt a deep sadness. Ever since he learned about my illness, he couldn't bring himself to be strict with me, and he just hoped this good student could feel a little more warmth in the short time he had left. If there's nothing else, I'll head back to class. I turned to leave. Wait, a teacher wants to talk to you privately. They're already on their way. Zhang Zhiyuan stopped me. Which teacher? They're coming from the West Campus. It might take a little while. I'm a bit confused. I don't know any teachers from the West Campus. Each grade has different study tasks. Their schedules also vary. To prevent students from affecting each other, the school has assigned a separate campus for each grade. Right now, I am in the East Campus. When I first enrolled, I also spent a year at the West Campus. Current students from the West Campus are 2 grades below us. We barely interact on a daily basis. Not long after, a knock sounded at the door. A male teacher in his 30s stood at the entrance. He was dressed neatly, exuding a refined. Zhang Zhiyuan greeted him warmly. Then he introduced him to me. Zhuangxiang, this is teacher Li Junan. I lowered my voice. I don't know him. Why is he looking for me? Zhang Jiyuan simply shook his head, indicating he didn't. Li Junan glanced at me, then smiled politely. Student Zhuangziang, would you like to take a walk with me? Of course, I agreed immediately. Teacher Li left a great first impression, especially his smile, which felt warm and comforting. Leaving the office, we went up to the rooftop. From there, we could see almost the entire school. Li Junan took a deep breath, then said to me, I heard that on your monthly exam paper, you wrote the name Su Yudie. I was startled. Teacher, you know her? Li Junan nodded slightly. I am her homeroom teacher. Hearing this, I suddenly understood all my previous confusion was clear. No wonder the security office's computer and the exam records had no students with the surname Su. It turns out she was a student from the West. That means she's my junior. I had thought she was the same age as me. There are a total of 25 classes in the West Campus. He wasn't lying when he said he was from class 23. There is a slight difference in elevation between the two campuses. The structure of the teaching building here is somewhat unique. A covered walkway was built on the roof. It leads to the staircase going toward the West Campus. I finally understood. Every time Butterfly said goodbye at the stairway corner, she was actually heading upstairs back to the two campuses have different schedules. That's why she could buy ice cream and wait for me before my class ended. Everything suddenly made perfect sense. Why did you write her name on your test paper? Li Junan asked. I miss her a lot. I wrote it down unconsciously. I answered honestly. She really is a very adorable girl. I miss her too. Li Junan's eyes turned slightly red. What is your relationship with Su Yudie? We're really good friends. I answered. Facing a teacher, I wouldn't dare to say that I liked Butterfly. Then, I pointed to the ginkgo tree in the northwest corner of the playground. The first time I met her was under that tree. She was really interesting. She left a lasting impression even after. As for the mural, students who skipped class naturally made some artistic edits. They wouldn't dare include any affectionate gestures. Li Junan chuckled and said, she does run around the campus a lot. She's really like a butterfly. Teacher, why did you give her so many leave permits? I asked, confused. You're her good friend, don't you know? Li Junan asked in return. As a friend, if she doesn't tell me, it wouldn't be right for me to ask. I replied sincerely. With a sad tone, Li Junan said, she isn't in good health. So I gave her permission that if she didn't feel like attending, she could go out and play. Hearing this, my heart sank. So when they said she wasn't in good health, clearly, it was just a euphemism. For the homeroom teacher to be this her illness must have been quite severe. Just like Zhang Jiyuan now, who grants almost all of my requests. I had vaguely suspected this before, and now Li Junan had confirmed it. So Butterfly was also struggling with an illness, yet she lived so optimistically and I felt ashamed. Compared to Butterfly, I was far behind. As for what exactly her illness was, I didn't press further. On one hand, it was her personal privacy. On the other hand, judging by Li Junan's expression, he probably didn't want to say. She was a child of misfortune, losing her parents at a young age. She was raised by her grandmother. Who would have thought? Li Junan trailed off mid-sentence, his voice choking up. I felt like I was struck by my head buzzed. Butterfly's life had been so tragic. Compared to her, I was actually quite fortunate. A silent tear slid down my cheek. Li Junan handed me a tissue. Having a friend like you is a blessing for her. Teacher, do you know where she went? I wiped the tears from my eyes. Li Junan looked up at the sky. I don't know, but probably somewhere she wanted to be. I couldn't help but ask more about Butterfly. But even Li Junan didn't know much. He told me everything he did. When Su Yudie was very young, her parents passed away in an accident. Her grandmother received a compensation payment. She raised her alone. Around the age of 14 or 15, Su Yudie was diagnosed with an illness. She had to go to the hospital regularly for treatment. However, the compensation money from years ago was already running low. Most of it went into the endless, yet she remained cheerful, always positive and full of imagination. She always brought joy to those around her. That's about all I know. She never told you anything? Li Junan asked. I shook my head sadly. No, we just ate, played, and had fun together. Li Junan gave a bitter smile. That's just how she was. She shared her happiness with us, but bore her sadness alone. I completely understood Butterfly's way of. After all, I had never told her about my illness. The sun had risen high. Its rays were now scorching and blinding. The school bell echoed across the campus. Li Junan patted my shoulder. Don't be sad. I didn't come here for anything serious. Just to satisfy my curiosity. I just wanted to see one of her friends. I bowed respectfully. Thank you, teacher, for telling me so much about her. After that, we bid farewell. Li Junan then returned to the West Camp. His visit had certainly answered many of my questions. Yet, something still didn't seem right. Some things still felt illogical. And knowing that Butterfly was also sick felt like a heavy stone on my heart. I could barely breathe. It was as if fate was playing a cruel joke on us both. On Wednesday, the monthly exam results, for the first time ever, I lost my place at the top. In fact, all my subjects were marked as 0. I ranked dead last in my grade. Everyone in class was shocked. What happened? Did Zhuangziang? Something's definitely wrong. Zhuangziang must have gotten into trouble. Rumors spread quickly in the class. The one who was most outraged on my behalf was, of course, my son, Yi. No way, absolutely no way. They must have forgotten to record your score. Go ask old Zhang for an explanation. I grabbed his arm. Don't. I held him back. Don't. It was my own problem. What problem? Yi Tengcheng frowned. Did you hand in a blank test? But I just smiled without answering. The next class was Chinese. The class representative, along with a few, began distributing the test. One stack of papers was handed out first. Yi Tengcheng got a 111. He looked distressed. Am I doomed to be single forever? I glanced at his mistakes. Sighing deeply, I said, You don't even know this? You're dumber than the audience watching a screen. Yi Tengcheng blushed, but retorted, A guy who handed in a blank test has no right to criticize me. Just as he finished speaking, a test paper landed on my desk. The class representative announced, Mr. Zhang, specifically, this paper belongs to you. By the way, your pen name is ridiculously soft. Yi Tengcheng, Liu Ruyan, and the others looked at me in confusion. What do you mean, pen name? Who writes a pen name on a test? They all leaned over. My test paper had a score of 137. They were envious. Scoring this high in Chinese was nearly impossible. Then why was your overall score? Liu Ruyan asked, surprised. Then, as they looked at the name on the test paper, they saw it clearly, Su Yudie. A wave of realization hit me. How deep was I in this? I had written her name on my exam instead of my own. Yi Tengcheng slapped me on the back. I knew you were crazy about that butterfly girl. But did you really have to flex this? You make us single guys with 111 look miserable. Case closed? No wonder Zhuangziang got a 0. The classroom buzzed with chatter. Wait, who's this Su Yudie? The pretty girl who came looking for Zhuangziang last. Oh, that one. Dating really messes up your studies. From first place straight to last. If I had a girlfriend that pretty, I wouldn't even bother taking the exam. Even if I have to pluck the stars from the sky for him. In the next few classes, the test papers for each subject were my scores were ridiculously high, leaving everyone in shock. But the name Su Yudie on the paper stood out striking, making people grit their teeth. You're spreading this dog food way too extravagant. For someone like this, just annulling their results is too light a punishment. They should be made to write a 30. During the class break, suddenly a classmate shouted, Zhuangziang, someone is looking for you. Zhuangziang abruptly stood up and rushed out of the classroom, only to see the meticulous Deng Haijun. The disappointment in his eyes was all too. Deng Haijun handed me the score report of class 15. Both his class rank and grade rank were clearly written. Haijun, congratulations. You finally got what you wanted. I chuckled. I checked the overall grade rankings on the teacher's computer. If you were ranked second or I might have been happy for you, but you're ranked 1075. Deng Haijun roared in frustration. I told you on the first day after the exam. I forgot to write my name. I teased him lightheartedly. That's just running away from not manly at all. Winning first place like this didn't bring Deng Haijun any joy. He insisted on seeing my test, or he wouldn't be able. I had no energy left to argue with him. So I went back to the classroom to get my test. Deng Haijun added up the total score and let out a tragic wail. What are you screaming for? I scoffed. You're just 2 points short. I was this close to beating you fair and square. Deng Haijun was utterly frustrated. I burst out laughing, finding him quite adorable. Everyone else, upon seeing my test, was only focused on the name Su Yudie. But he was actually calculating the total score. A true top student's mindset is really different from others. By the way, are you participating in next month's physics comp? Deng Haijun asked. No, I might not have time. I refused decisively, without even. After all, I have just over a month left to. How could I have the mind to participate? Deng Haijun showed a disappointed expression and secretly swore in his heart to stay away from girls. Such creatures, they are too demotivating. I am a living example. How could girls be more interesting than physics problems? Then I took a picture of Class 15's grade sheet as evidence and sent Deng Haijun away. Back to my seat to nap. Zhuangziang, Someone is looking. Another voice came. This guy again? I sighed and got up, walking out of. Many classmates were playing and chasing each other in the hallway. But when I saw who was standing in the corridor, my mind went completely blank. Little butterfly, Zhuangziang dumbly called out, "Big idiot." Su Yudie was clearly smiling, but her voice had a slight sobbing tone. I held my breath. My heartbeat quickened. Step by step, I moved closer. I carefully reached out my hand, afraid that the girl in front of me was just and that she would disappear until my fingertips touched the softness of her cheek. Little butterfly, where did you go? I missed you so much. Big idiot, I'm back. Why are you crying? You promised to be happy every day. If we weren't outside the classroom, with so many classmates around, I would have hugged her without hesitation. But at this moment, we could only gaze at each other, lost in silence. Little butterfly had been gone for an entire week. During this time, I deeply understood the old saying, one day apart, feel. But now that she appeared, her thin frame and pale face, it makes my heart ache so much. What exactly have you been through this past week? Zhuangziang, I want to eat all the delicious food, from one end of the street to the other. Su Yudie made a bold declaration. I smiled and nodded. Not just eating together. Even if it's a mountain of swords and a sea of fire. At the first stop, I bought a big bunch of lamb. I asked the vendor to sprinkle plenty of chili and cumin. Little butterfly then asked his classic line, Coke or Pepsi? But this time I want Pepsi. After a tough, I want something sweet. The two of us sat on the steps in Dali City, tearing into the lamb skewers recklessly, eating without a care. Spicy food has a particular trait. Once you stop eating, the spiciness surges rapidly. Little butterfly's cheeks turned red from the heat. Sweat formed on his forehead. He blew air from his mouth, then took a big gulp of ice-cold cold. Only after a satisfying burp did he. I watched him with a smile. Such an ungraceful act. Liu Ruyan would never do so. That's why Liu Ruyan can never be. A beautiful girl who is also down to earth is an absolute killer move to any boy. Su Yudie raised her head to the vast blue sky. Suddenly, she raised her arms high and shouted, "Wow, the world is so beautiful." If it were before, I would have laughed along, but now, deep inside, it feels like I'm carrying the weight of 1,000. It's hard to believe that this is a girl who lost both parents as a child, raised by her grandmother, struggling with an illness, yet she remains so optimistic, bringing joy to those around her. Little butterfly, where exactly have you been this past week? I felt like I was asking the obvious. After the time with teacher Li Junan at the rooftop chapel, I had a rough idea. Little butterfly must have been receiving treatment. This past week, he was most likely accompanied by hospital bed. I went out to have fun, Su Yudie said enthusiastically. I didn't expose his lie. Nor did I plan to tell Little Butterfly that I had met his homeroom teacher, that I knew about his condition. I kept the sadness to myself. Wouldn't it be nice to be happy every day? I went to a really fun place. I met so many new friends. I could lie down and watch the sky. I didn't have to do anything. And I slept so well at night. I almost didn't want to come back because I was having. He spoke so vividly. For a moment, I almost believed. My eyes turned red. Going along, I asked, then why did you come back? Because I missed you. The big dummy Su Yudie poked my forehead. Did the place you went have gardens and butterflies? Of course it did. The butterflies there were so beautiful. Their wings had all kinds of patterns. Then we kept chatting, on and off. I tried my best to forget the and just accompanied him, seeking happiness without. After a short break, we started sweeping through the street food stall. Fried potatoes, stinky tofu, egg pancakes, candied hawthorn, soy milk tea, watermelon juice. Like two starving little ghosts, we ate until our stomachs were round. Finally satisfied, we went to the riverside to bask in the sun. Zhuangziang lay on the grass. Little butterfly rested his head on my stomach, listening to the gurgling sounds inside. The air was filled with the fragrance of grass and earth. This moment felt like something out of a dream. But Little Butterfly's absence this past made me deeply understand something. When two people love each other, and one of them has to face death, the one who survives is actually the one who suffers the most. The one who dies leaves everything behind. All is over for them. But the one who lives has to endure endless sorrow and longing, enduring a long period of. Although I learned from teacher Li Junan that Little Butterfly also has some kind. It shouldn't be as severe as mine. Still, the days ahead have to be counted carefully. By the way, do you remember our promise? I pulled out a folded monthly exam paper from my pocket. You really got first place? Su Yudie asked in surprise. No, I got last place. I smiled. Then I took out my phone. I pulled up the score sheets for class 9. Deng Haijun got first place in the grade. I ranked 1075th in the grade. Why are all your scores 0? Su Yudie was shocked. Then she glanced at the open exam paper. The scores on it were obviously incredibly high. I pointed to the name inside the sealed section. Because you, Su Yudie widened her eyes. I didn't know my name could look this nice. You big dummy, why did you write my name? I missed you so much that my hand moved on its own. My eyes were filled with deep. Then you didn't get first place. Our promise doesn't count. Su Yudie pooted arrogantly. What do you mean it doesn't count? Add up my total score. I scored 2 points higher than Deng Haijun, I argued. I don't care if all your answers were zeros. It still doesn't count. If you cheat, I'm going to use force. I flipped over. My hands reached under Su Yudie's arm. I started tickling her. Su Yudie was extremely ticklish. She immediately curled up reflexively, struggling nonstop, gasping between bursts of laughter. The two of us wrestled on the grass, laughing like a pair of 3-year-olds. All right, it counts, you big dummy. Now let me go. Little Butterfly laughed until she had begging for mercy. Only then did I stop, letting her rest against me. I helped him brush off the grass and twigs from his. Little Butterfly panted slightly, then looked up and asked, "What do you want me to do?" I lovingly ruffled his hair. "I want to take you somewhere. It's called Manhwa Village. Manhwa Village is my hometown. My grandparents live there, and every summer and winter I spent my days in that beautiful village. The few happy memories of my childhood are all from that place. This time, I probably won't make it to summer break. I just want to see it one more time, perhaps for the last time." Su Yudie originally thought I was going to make him do something difficult, but when he found out it was just, he happily agreed right away. But on one condition: we must return before dark to catch the 6:10 Route 19 bus. I played with Su Yudie's braided hair, then took off the red string bracelet from my wrist, tying it into a butterfly knot at the end of her braid. I went to Xiaoyao Palace last week. The fortune teller there said this bracelet is from that place. He's not a fortune teller. He's just a con artist tricking people. Only fools fall for his tricks. Su Yudie sneered. I thought he had an immortal aura, and the way he spoke was so serious, not like a fraud. I mumbled uncertainly, "You big dummy, just admit it. How much did you get scammed for?" Su Yudie burst into loud laughter, echoing across the grass. "And you call yourself the top student of the grade?" My face turned red. I quickly changed the subject. "Oh right, I met an old lady selling snacks there. She made amazing tofu pudding. Do you know her?" "I don't. Never seen her." Little Butterfly shook his head. I felt a bit puzzled. He recognized the fortune teller, but not the tofu pudding lady. That was strange. I had assumed they were working together. A classic case of bundled. Su Yudie patted her chest. "If you want tofu pudding, you don't need to buy it. My tofu pudding is even better than the ones sold out." I laughed. "You know how to make tofu pudding?" "Of course, it's super easy." Then, Su Yudie confidently explained the entire process of making. At the end, she didn't forget to ask, "Isn't it simple?" I was dumbfounded. I nodded blankly. "Yeah, it sounds simple." At that moment, I suddenly craved her tofu pudding. The river breeze quietly carried away the passage of time. The moment felt fleeting and peaceful. Before we knew it, it was time to part ways again. I accompanied Su Yudie to the bus stop. After hesitating for a long time, I finally said, "How about I walk you home?" Little Butterfly shook her head. "No need. I'm not a child. I can go home by myself. But I want to spend more time with you." I tugged at Little Butterfly's wrist, acting like a spoiled child. Little Butterfly stared into my eyes, then suddenly pointed her finger at my nose. "Do you just want to come to my house and then pretend you're tired and need a drink of water, but end up staying there all night and even find an excuse to sleep? Then in the middle of the night, you'll try something." My face turned bright. I stammered, "No, that's not what I meant." "I wasn't thinking that at all." Little Butterfly giggled. "Then why do you look so guilty?" "I was just teasing you." I pouted and glared at her. "You've slept over at my place twice, but you still won't tell me where you live. And you stole my first kiss while pretending to be drunk, then acted like nothing happened. If that's not being a little rogue, I don't." The Route 19 bus turned the corner. It was time to say goodbye. Su Yudie gently said, "All right, I'll come find you again tomorrow. You better not disappear for a long time again." I felt reluctant to part. "I won't. If I ever have to leave, I'll tell you in advance." Su Yudie took a few steps, then turned back and waved. The bus slowly pulled away, stirring a few fallen leaves on the road. After dinner, I returned to my rental apartment and dialed the phone rang a few times before he picked up. He probably still wasn't very familiar with using a smartphone. Hello, who is this? My grandfather's aged voice came through the Grandpa, it's me. As soon as I spoke, my nose tingled with emotion. Xiang, did your father bully you again? Grandpa asked anxiously. No, Grandpa. I haven't gone back since the day you left. I answered. A perfectly good home turned into this. Grandpa sighed heavily. He had spent his whole life worrying about his children, and yet when faced with something like this, he had no. Grandpa, I'm coming to visit you this Saturday. Really? His voice was full of surprise. But then he hesitated. Aren't you busy with school? If you don't have time, don't worry about it. Grandma and I are doing just fine. I miss Grandma's cooking. I tried to make my voice sound lighthearted. All right then, I'll have her prepare something special. Grandpa was overjoyed. I could hear the smile in his voice. That's how elderly people, they hope day and night that their children and grandchildren, but they never say it out loud. Instead, they just tell us to focus on, oh, Grandpa, I'm bringing a friend with me. A friend who? A boy or a girl? You'll find out when we get there. I kept it a mystery. I was sure Grandpa and Grandma would love Little Butterfly. For the next 2 days, I behaved myself. I didn't skip class, and I didn't get to see Little Butterfly much either. We could only have lunch together at noon and take a short nap. Of course, when I say nap, I mean just that, literally. However, when sending messages, as long as it's daytime, Little Butterfly always replies, but at night, she disappears without a trace. I've already gotten used to her unique way of doing things. She's a girl, after all. It's normal for her family to be a bit strict. On Friday after school, I walked Little Butterfly to the bus stop. It was still early, so I sat at the station for a while. Quietly watching the red sun at the horizon, I suddenly saw a familiar figure approaching. It was Deng Haijun, the straight-A student with Zhuangziang. Are you free tonight? Zhuangziang shook his head. Deng Haijun was delighted. That's great. Come to the library with me to work on competition. There are some questions I only want to discuss. I had nothing better to do, so I nodded and agreed. But this guy Deng Haijun really doesn't understand social etiquette at all. It's almost dark. Shouldn't you at least buy someone a snack? The library is full of happy memories of Zhuangziang and passing by a convenience. I even deliberately bought a pack of fruit candy. A grown man carrying candy into the library. Isn't that gross? Deng Haijun sneered. You'll understand in the future. I replied meaningfully, when someone suddenly acts foolishly, it's usually because they've fallen in love. Unfortunately, the audience watching this won't get to experience that feat. At the library, we found a seat. Deng Haijun brought over some reference. He started working on physics competition. At first, he was fully focused and ignored until he encountered a difficult problem and wanted to discuss it with. Only then did he realize that the so-called genius student was actually holding a copy of Forrest, reading it with great enthusiasm. Are you insane? Deng Haijun complained. I never noticed before, but reading joke books really helps me relax. Zhuangziang chuckled. The problem Deng Haijun was struggling was a question about speed. It was indeed quite difficult. I also took a pen and kept calculating on the. After discussing with Deng Haijun for a long, we finally solved it. Both of us felt a great sense of achievement. This is the kind of joy that only the audience watching this won't be able to relate. Deng Haijun stared at the densely written calculations on the draft, then glanced at the reference book beside him. Suddenly an idea struck him. Zhuang, do you think time travel is real? Time travel has always been a hot topic in the scientific community. Countless scientists have proposed various hypotheses and theories. For example, the famous Stephen Hawking suggested black holes and the speed of light as 3 possible ways to. He even once hosted a time traveler's party, inviting people from the future to attend. Unfortunately, after waiting for hours, no one showed up. Compared to time travel, people might be more familiar with the concept of traversing time. In online novels, this is a huge genre, full of imagination and fun. Of course, people can travel through time. I nodded with a smile. Have you actually met a time traveler? What's the theoretical? Deng Haijun asked seriously. I'm just guessing. What theoretical basis do I? If so many scientists can't figure it out, do you think with our limited intelligence, we can make any meaningful I rolled my eyes. I heard there's a place called Langxin, where thousands of time travelers live. They survive by relying on Brother Cow. Deng Haijun stayed silent for a moment. Then I never expected this, usually serious bookworm, to know about such things. We ended the conversation there. I continued reading Forrest Gump while Deng Haijun kept tackling his insanely difficult physics problems until the library's closing music played. After stepping outside, I watched Deng Haijun's departing figure and felt a bit melted. Suddenly, I shouted at the top of my lungs, "Hi! If you ever achieve time travel, please go back 18 years and find my mom." Pass my words to him. I didn't want to come into this world. Are you crazy? Saying things like that. Deng Haijin turned back and scolded. Yeah, I'm seriously ill. I smiled, waved my hand, and muttered. On the way back, on the overpass, there was suddenly a wearing a long robe and reading glass. Young man, would you like a fortune? I stopped in my tracks. When I got a clear look at him, I was surprised. Zhang Bangshan also recognized me. He smiled and said, young man, we are quite fated to meet. It turned out he was none other than the Taoist priest who interpreted my fortune, the same one that little butterfly called a scammer. I curiously asked, aren't you supposed to? Why are you out here telling fortune? Zhang Bangshan sighed and said, the market is tough these days. People are restless. If I don't take on extra work, it's hard to make a living. I never really believed in fortune telling, so I didn't want to waste my money. After a few pleasantries, I planned to leave, but Zhang Bangshan grabbed my arm and said, no charge. Do you believe I can guess your last name? My last name. I was suddenly intrigued. Unforgettable, lonely star plum. Zhang Bangshan shook his head and said, I frowned. Are you speaking in riddles? Seeing me still thinking, Zhang Bangshan eagerly began explaining. Up is north, down left is west, right. The bottom part of prosper is kin. Lonely star is just a dot. Plum and moon together. When put together, it barely resembles the character Zhuang. So, young man, what do you think? Zhang Bangshan asked smugly. Huh? You really know my last name? I was a bit surprised. Then suddenly I realized I was left speechless. Last time at Xiaoyao Palace, did you hear my friend call my name? Haha. Zhang Bangshan coughed twice to cover his embarrassment. Then he said, these are just little tricks. Nothing worth analyzing. We're acquaintances, right? I'll charge you 10 yuan. I'll read your palm. I immediately refused. No, 10 yuan is enough for a bowl of. Then 5 yuan, he said. Let's be friends. Zhang Bangshan was very smooth. He instantly cut the price in half. I'm not falling for your trick. I refused again. I turned to leave. Stop right there. Zhang Bangshan raised with a serious face, he said, young man, you are too arrogant. Speaking recklessly, I'll read your palm for free. If I get it right, you can pay me. Deal? I still shook my head. After hearing what little butterfly said, I was wary of him, afraid he would scam me. There are so many people watching on this bridge. At least give me some respect. Do you want me to kneel and beg? Zhang Bangshan looked utterly desperate, seeing that he was around 50 years old. Setting up a stall late at night on the bridge wasn't easy. I couldn't help but feel pity. Fine, which hand do you want to see? Left or right? Left hand. I stretched out my left, thinking I'd just humor him. Zhang Bangshan probably wanted to use me as a prop, a little performance to attract more customers. No matter what he said, I planned to let it go in one. Then Zhang Bangshan took my fingertips, staring at the lines on my palm for a full 30 seconds. Suddenly, he let out a long sigh. Your lifeline is too this is a sign of a short life. His words instantly made me. If this were in the past, I would have just turned and left. But now, after being diagnosed with hearing Zhang Bangshan say it so bluntly, made my heart pound in fear. Could this old fraud actually have some real skill? But generally speaking, even if a fortune teller sees disaster in a client's future, they usually phrase it more tactfully. Who would start by saying something so ominous? Zhang Bangshan flipped my hand over. Then, suddenly changing the topic, he said, your hands are a bit. I recommend you a hand cream. It moisturizes your skin and slows down skin aging. Only 20 yuan per tube. As he spoke, he pulled out a box of hand cream from behind. I was utterly stunned. Aren't you a fortune teller? You're also selling skincare products now? Zhang Bangshan chuckled. Isn't it good to have multiple sources of income to support my family? You are so unreliable. I don't have time to waste on your nonsense. I shook my head, turned around, and walked away quickly. Little Butterfly was right. He really is a fraud. Behind me, Zhang Bangshan called out calmly, young man, you will come back to find me. I scoffed and said, if I come back and let you scam me, I'll call you Grandpa. Zhang Bangshan, unfazed, calmly reached into his pocket and pulled out a black ocarina. As I walked away, a melodious tune suddenly floated from behind me. My body instantly froze. My expression stiffened, and I couldn't take another step. Grandpa, what is the name of this song? I obediently walked back to Zhang Bangshan's fort. He put down the ocarina and burst into laughter. I told you you'd stop teasing me. I just want to know the name of that, I asked impatiently. Zhang Bangshan curled his finger, motioning me to come closer. I immediately pulled out a 10 yuan bill. Grumbling scammer! Zhang Bangshan happily took the money. He held the bill up to the streetlight, pretending to check it. Then he tucked it into his pocket before slowly speaking. This song is called Dream. It's a piece used in Taoist rituals to honor Master Na. Can you teach me? I pleaded. No, unless you become a Taoist priest with me. Zhang Bangshan flatly refused. What if I pay? I asked. Music is such a refined art. Yet you're talking money with me? Zhang Bangxian kept a straight face. Then, suddenly, he raised an eyebrow. How much? I hesitated. Bargaining. At this moment, I realized I was no match for this old swindler. I still needed my savings to last another 2 months. Just then, a street vendor selling phone screen protectors. Run, the city patrol is coming. Zhang Bangxian's face turned pale. He immediately scrambled to pack up his stall. Then he shot me a glance. What are you standing there for? Help me. Oh, okay, I responded. I quickly wrapped up the yellow cloth on, gathering up the scattered trinkets. Zhang Bangxian dragging me along. He rushed down the. We weaved through the crowd, trying to escape the city patrol. As we ran, something felt off. I wasn't an illegal street vendor. Why was I running too? Why did you stop? Zhang Bangxian, panting, looked at me. I'm not your accomplice. Why should I run? I tossed the bundle of yellow cloth back at him. Zhang Bangxian glanced back toward the bridge. Seeing that the patrol hadn't followed, he sighed and then he turned to me with a smile. You're quite an interesting kid. Didn't you want to eat beef noodles? I know a great noodle shop nearby. I hadn't eaten dinner yet, and after all that running, I was drained. My stomach growled loudly. I also really want to learn that dream butter, so I followed the old swindler through twists. We arrived at an old residential area. Sure enough, there was a noodle shop. Zhang Bangxian called the owner. He ordered 2 large bowls of beef and added 10 extra yuan worth. Then I watched Zhang Bangxian devour the beef. Oil dripped from his mouth. He was definitely not a proper Tao. I was starving, so I picked up my chopsticks and started eating the freshly cooked noodles soaked in broth. Warm and comforting. I felt that the taste of the broth was very similar to my grandmother's. Thinking of my grandparents in the country, then thinking about my illness, my vision started to blur. How should I face my grandparents when the disease worsens? It's just a bowl of noodles? Why are you crying over it? Zhang Bangxian curled his lips. Reluctantly, he picked up a few pieces and placed them in my bowl, then hesitated, taking one piece back. My voice was full of, during this time when I am dying, this secret has been weighing on me, making it hard. Now facing a stranger, I couldn't help but want to talk about it, to make myself feel a little better. Dying is good. I just looked at you earlier and saw that you have a short life is a fleeting pleasure. Death is no suffering. Zhang Bangxian didn't comfort me at all. Instead, he spoke coldly. He slurped his noodles loudly. I thought he misunderstood, so I seriously told him that I had been diagnosed. I have about 2 months left to live. Zhang Bangxian remained indifferent. Without changing his expression, he said, when you die, do you need me to perform a waterway? I charge very cheaply, you know. Do you have any sense of human compassion? I was furious. Everyone dies. It's not like you're the only one. What are you showing off for? Zhang Bangxian said indifferently. I was almost in tears just now. Yet in his words, it became showing. This guy must have something wrong in it. Talking to him about death is like playing music to a cow. Then I asked the question I had been holding in the whole. How did you know that if you played Dream Butterfly, I would come back to find you? Do you know Su Yudie? Zhang Bangxian didn't answer directly. Instead, he stared at my wrist and asked, where's the red? I returned it to him. Zhang Bangxian's expression changed. Last time you gave me thousands just to find someone. Looks like you finally found him as you wished. Yeah, he came back. I nodded. Reunion always means facing another separation. Zhang Bangxian sighed. I frowned. This guy really had a way with unpleasant words. Do I need you to remind me? I resisted the urge to leave in anger. Lowering my pride, I said, teach me that song. I really think it sounds beautiful. Zhang Bangxian shook his head firmly. I can't. That would be harming you. It's just a song. How could it harm me? I was a bit surprised. From the moment you first heard, you were already in a dream. Life and death, like Zhuangzhou dreaming of a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming of Zhuangzhou.